on one part of it. So as you know, one of the goals is to streamline that. We have some that are doing the traditional evaluation. We have some that we're doing the walkthroughs, which is a 5-year process. Part of the bargaining and part of what we already have agreement in principle with the teachers union is to kind of condense those. We have 4 really different systems. We want to condense it to at least one, if not maybe one, with an alternative.
2 questions for you. Is there a student or parent component to the evaluations?
Student or parent component? So say more about that.
So in other words, the evaluation is only done from the perspective of the administrator?
Yes, that's right. So anything that with the evaluation components, those are bargained. So right now it does not include we have, so what I believe you're alluding to is like a 360-degree survey. We do, and ours does not. There are some districts, some charter organizations that do those, but currently ours is not. And I don't know of any public school evaluations that involve students or parents.
But then so in terms of effectiveness, do we believe that having just administrative evaluations is going to be adequate?
That's a big question as far as what is the most effective. I think there's research that I could certainly bring back to talk about effectiveness.
Yeah, I mean, if we're going to do it, I just would like to really do it right, you know. And so I think that the learners should be part of the evaluation process. You know, from the perspective of an adult, you know, I'm learning things from my kids' eyes all the time. And usually they have it down right. They know a lot that I don't know. So I just wonder, I really want us to succeed, and I'm open to this program, but I want to make sure that it's really going to be helpful.
Yeah, so from, just technically, from my perspective in HR, because it's a bargain, it's part of the collective bargaining agreement, so the board has, when we start going into closed session to talk about parameters and language, those are certainly things that we can talk about there. The board can always give direction to say, this is something that the board would like to set as a priority in our evaluation system.
And there's also, you know, like some school districts will do like a culture and climate survey to get like that kind of 360 approach. And I will say it is the administration that's doing the evaluations, but it's also not just one administrator. I mean, what makes up someone's performance is other administrators walking in district office, being in classrooms, just you know, walk through data, that type of information.
Yeah, so and that's a good point. So as far as the technical piece of doing the evaluation, but I like to remind administrators that everything, they usually believe, okay, there's 2 times we're going into a classroom. That's the evaluation. That's not the evaluation. We take, you know, if there's complaints, for example.
Right. Okay.
We do take feedback. So certainly you can say, I've gotten 10 reports this year that you're not inputting grades. Let's just do something like that, because that happens at times. So I'm hearing that this is the case. So as the administrator, I can say, you need to input grades. You need to get feedback. And that might be something I coach. That might be something our goals are created around. So while it's not directly part of the evaluation, certainly those pieces come into play. And administrators in the room, I'm sure there's other examples that you could share.
We definitely take those into consideration if we're starting to see a trail of
The pattern of
things that we want to be on the lookout for. And the other thing that we like to do, or I can say that I know my team likes to do, is when we're in a classroom talking to students and asking them what they're learning, right? What they're doing and where they are and how they feel like they're progressing. And that, you know, talking to students in that way and the clarity of where they are in their learning helps inform what we're seeing, right?
And do you find that when you're interacting with the students, they're not giving you a generic answer, but do you find that they're actually being straightforward about what's working for them and what's not working for them?
I think yes, like I think
sometimes they're generic,
yes,
and sometimes
it's
sometimes
you can tell that like I love this teacher and I'm gonna do everything I can to, you know, and that says something too, right? And other times, you know, they can't hide it, right? If you ask them, what are you learning? And they're to struggle to get words out, it's clear even if they're trying, you know,
Okay.
so.
One of the
Thank
things
you.
we're looking for when we look at evidence and having evidence-based coaching, evidence-based evaluations is to have really not necessarily watch teacher, but really watch learner, right?
Mhm.
So I wanna ask the student, what are you learning? What are you talking,
Yes.
what are we working on? When they're in groups, I can see engagement, but are you engaged talking about math and the lesson of math, or are you engaged talking about what happened Saturday? Right, and that's the evidence and the feedback that I'm going to give my teacher as I'm working to coach them. If I can say, you know, as evidenced by 15 kids off task,
Got you.
engagement was not
Okay.
good. So the evidence comes, while it's not the student saying, oh, they're not very engaging, and like, no, I can see if you're off task or
Okay.
not. So my evidence and my feedback is really, it makes it about what was happening, not you as the teacher, you know, not you are a good or bad teacher. No, the evidence suggests this.
Okay.
So that helps us coach.
Thank you.
Can you just go back a step, because I think, as well, you know, for people that watch the strategic plan and wanna understand where we're at on teacher evaluations, because I know previously in the last MOU, there was, negotiations around evaluations. So if you could just bring everybody up to speed on where were we during those negotiations, what was really identified as what issues were we trying to address? And that, and now this year, how, you know, like, what does it look like, and how are you trying to address it in that way, and this, so that everyone can understand?
So, and I don't know how far you want me to go back, but I think, so obviously
I mean,
during.
from the last negotiation.
Sure, yeah, from our last negotiation.
The goal was determined to.
Right, so one of the things that we did, we left open the evaluation, and we put it into a committee. So committee on the district side as well as the union side. So it was a push by the Board of Education at that time to say, we wanna do something with the evaluation, we wanna change the
To
evaluation.
make them more effective, more streamlined,
Good.
and what were the
Yes.
goals?
Yes, effective, streamlined, to ultimately, when we talk about excellence, right, we believe there's a component of it, like there's feedback, coaching, evaluation piece towards working towards excellence. So those were certainly things that we were tasked with doing. Going back to that time, as you know, we were in COVID, so the evaluation system, we had some MOUs around there where we did not, we slightly altered what the evaluation system was like, because people were online, if you recall, during our first year or so during that piece. So we had an MOU that made it look a little bit different, yet we were still trying to hold accountability. So in that time now, what we've had is the committees have met, we have agreed upon an evaluation system that pares things down, that streamlines things to, again, we have one solid evaluation. What we'll still need to negotiate, most districts always have an alternative. What that looks like, we've not suggested exactly what it will look like, we need to work on that, but I believe that our stock evaluation, our main traditional evaluation needs to be what we invest a lot of our time in, because that's what a big majority of our folks will be on, and there needs to be an agreement to do an alternative anyway. So if our administrators have people who they say, you need to be on the traditional, right, and not this alternative, then we don't necessarily have to agree on it. So we've got to that piece. We have a new evaluation, as I said, we have it going to the board tonight for approval to work with Frontline, working around the work around Charlotte Danielson. So it will streamline, and we believe the Danielson new rubrics are really good. It will help us as a district really have a same language on what good instruction looks like, what good feedback looks like, and what good evidence to make sure that we're providing good evidence to say this is what we saw in the classroom, this is what students were doing, this is what you're learning, this is what was happening. Now I can coach you around those goals, because that's another piece of it, is there's goal creation, feedback, and then coaching around that. How can I get you to be better? And then ultimately, at the end of the day, there's an accountability piece, right? If we've coached you and coached you and coached you, and you're just not getting it, or there's something that's not resonating, you're just not effective, then we have systems in place. First, one, to put you into the PAR, which is the peer assistance and review. We have really high functioning program. And then ultimately, the accountability piece is if somebody's not working, then we would move towards getting rid of that teacher in our system that's not effective.
So when you talk about piloting, starting a pilot program on that this year, how many people are you anticipating will be participating in the pilot program? And what really are gonna be the metrics for you to really determine, and what are you looking for and how are you gonna measure that?
So, good question. I've got lots and lots, just anecdotally, a lot of people who've already said, yeah, I'm in, I wanna be part of this. So I've asked our administrators to talk to their folks. So I don't have a good number other than we know a lot of people want to be part of it. Our administrators all want to be part of it, yes. Whether they want to or not, no, they really do. Because I think it's going to be great. But
do you have a ballpark number?
No, I would say maybe a third of our teachers that are on for evaluation.
So a third of a third?
Yeah.
Significant, yeah, very significant. And I think that's important in a pilot, that it's not too big, one, because we want it to be scalable, we want it to be manageable, and it's something we're implementing. But we also want to make sure that we're getting off on the right foot, right? We're doing a really good job, we're effective, and then yet there's enough people that we say, yes, we can tell if this is being effective or not. And I anticipate in our first year, we'll just continue as anything, and implementation will get better and better, tighter and tighter in our evaluation, but we'll all be speaking the same language by the end, going into next school year. We'll start now, but everybody system-wide will be speaking the same language on what does good instruction look like, what components do we have of good instruction. Not that it doesn't happen now, but there's some of that, but it's all over, it could be all over the map. We will all have one common platform of what good instruction looks like, and we'll know what does evidence look like. Yeah.
So in some ways, you're really rolling out this year. You're rolling out, not necessarily piloting, because you're gonna roll it out and then next year you're gonna.
For sure. We will call it a pilot more for purposes with the union, right? Because there is a negotiation piece, as I said, anything has to be negotiated, so it'll be a pilot. However, we will be implementing the new evaluation system, I'm sure.
Okay.
Okay,
And, well, no, I don't want, I
Sure,
wanna.
we gotta move
No,
on.
I don't wanna move it, I wanna understand. We're here to study, not to move it. Regarding professional learning communities, is this gonna happen in, like, we can be top heavy, so it can happen earlier in the school year, so that then the teachers are actually trained sooner than later? What's the timeline on that?
When is so we're working with the solution tree people, what's the timeline?
The 27th through the 28th of this month.
Okay, yeah, so.
So what does
yes.
that mean? That means that in the month of September?
So training will start taking place, and our folks have been trained in PLCs and collaborative learning, but obviously we're taking it to a new level now. This is through the education services, so through Dustin's team. We'll be working with the site administrators as well as their teams to implement PLCs.
Okay, so that's gonna happen, it's just 2 days worth?
Their start, but it's PLCs, I don't know the exact training, but it's,
Right. We're
it's
going to a
usually.
conference, and then we're actually having somebody come in and work with our entire staff, our certified staff on our staff development day in February as well.
Okay, so there's 2 staff development days?
We took out the calendar, like at the beginning of the year, or we have like a day in which all the teachers in February, and then another day, I don't know the exacts, in April, in which Ed Services is doing professional development around.
Okay, what I'm asking is, because one of your goals is that 100% of your teachers are gonna receive the training on utilizing data for informed discussions during their PLC times. And to me, this is not something that I would want see done by the end of the year.
Yeah,
It's
so-
something I would wanna see done at the beginning of the year so they can implement it through the course of the year.
So that's a specific training. PLCs are something that's ongoing. You'll do some intensive training about how does an effective PLC work? What does it look like? That's ongoing. That's not just a one hit, we're done. This is something that most places would do PLC training ongoing, but there's very specific things that the sites are doing. Yeah, go ahead, you can speak to it.
So I think
Mark.
we use PLC in two different ways. There's like a PLC training that we're going to that's like specific, but we also use that to designate a certain time. And we talk about it in like how do we form these communities and how do we form different learning communities. So I think that the way that Mr. Seaman wrote it is to say that there's already designated PLC time and that Dr. Horvath is just talking about some training that we're also getting. So that's probably why it's coming back and forth. So I think that we are sort of looking at each other saying, we've already started that. That came with our NWEA and the iReady work that we're already doing in terms of like training our staff how to look at data. It's already happening.
It's already happening.
And we've already had those outside people coming in during our PLC time.
Got it.
We're also going to a training to be more effective leaders of PLCs. That's happening at the end of September.
So for example, like your Wednesday data chat, that's a PLC, correct?
Well, our grade level data chats are,
Yeah.
and then Wednesdays, the way that works on my campus is that I have two. One is like grade level PLCs, those happen during our specialist time. And then one Wednesday morning in our rotation, there's like across the school PLCs, so that they're in fact not with their grade level and they're with other people that they don't normally work with. So they're talking about data in both of those times.
But then Horseman is doing it 3 times a year?
I
You can't speak to
for
that.
Horseman, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I think that they have a different, it arrives at the same place, it's done a little bit differently.
And what the PLC folks will essentially do at these trainings is help our PLCs become more and more effective, right? And that's something that doesn't happen in a conference, and it's something that's ongoing, and so it's like having a coach for the coaches.
For the coach, yeah.
Right?
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Administrators that are in the room, do you feel that the new system, the evaluation system, will make stronger instruction as a result? Do all of you agree? It's a yes or no question.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Matt.
Yeah. Facilities.
Thank you, Matt.
Thank you.
I could go now.
The facilities are on it.
No, that's mine.
That's construction.
That's construction.
Oh, did you go too far?
Yeah, not too far. There you go.
So I'm going to just speak a little bit towards our part of the strategic plan, starting with our 5-year deferred maintenance plan. We are in our 4th year of executing our 5-year deferred maintenance plan, and it's time to extend that plan out another 5 years. So what I'm in the process of doing now is evaluating our facilities from a mechanical standpoint, aesthetic standpoint, and picking projects that are most important and are appropriate to fund through our deferred maintenance program. I'll be providing a final plan to you guys in the next month or so, carrying out the plan to the 29-30 school year. Our work order request system, we really learned a lot this last 6 months or so working with trying to get down to that 24-hour response time for our work orders. And what we're really finding is that there's really only a small percentage of those work orders that can actually be done on the spot. Most of them have to do with mechanical issues, and oftentimes parts need to be ordered. So what we're really focusing on is, of course, making sure we can get work orders done as quickly as possible, but also communicating to our stakeholders when we can't. So oftentimes there's let's say a 2-week period before we get parts for an air conditioner or something like that. It's just really important to let people know. So we're working really hard on our, not only the execution side of our work orders, but better communicating when we do have a deficiency that's going to take additional time to address. Our principal survey will be coming out next month, and I'm just going to really focus on our customer service and the needs of the site. And that's just going to be a simple thing that's going to help us better serve our customers. And then moving on to our fit reports, I'm actually really proud of what's happening with our fit inspections. This last couple of years, with the aggressive approach we've been taking with our, not only doing the fit reports, but aggressively pursuing the completion of the work associated with the fit reports, we're getting to the point where our findings are really dramatically reduced, which is really freeing us up to do more work, that happens on a day-to-day basis versus addressing deficiencies that are continually existing on the sites. Our site admins have been terrific with us working to try to address certain behaviors such as daisy chaining and storage issues and things like that pop up repetitively. So we're really getting a handle on that, and site behaviors are changing, our staff is getting used to it, and there's no reason our schools can't maintain exemplary status from this point forward. We're about a month away from our 2 sites that aren't exemplary from finishing our last fit results, and because of our inspection program that we're operating now, we're catching those things on a weekly basis and getting them done. I expect to have very few fit findings for next year. That's about it for facilities.
Good luck.
Any questions? Thank you.
Anybody else? Ken, just quickly, when you set the deferred maintenance budget after having completed the projects, do you feel that the budget you set the expenses are falling within the original budgets? Or?
So this last year there's been some variables. So the first 3 years, yes, they're almost exactly spot on. We've had some, not unexpected, but some changes in the deferred maintenance plan, which changed the way we're approaching the projects. We took a couple off the list, added a couple to the list. So currently carrying out the first 5 years, it's funded adequately, so I've enough to get through this year. And next year's projects, they're listed, and then moving forward, as I create my list of projects and work with Rob Bale, we're gonna have to work with them. For what we projected through the first 5 years, starting in 2019, we've been really spot on budget-wise.
Thank you.
In terms of the projects that you added, like for example, Conheim and like painting inside A, I mean, those are really big projects that you added in, that you were still able to stay within this deferred maintenance budget for the 5 years. What do you attribute that to? Is that for going out for the bids? Because I remember like with Conheim, it was a significant savings with the bids that you got.
Part of it's going out to bid. Part of it is I've shifted a lot of our flooring projects and painting projects to do Hawthorne and Beverly Vista together last year. That saved us a lot of money. I mean, instead of splitting the projects up and having a bunch of contractors mobilized to do smaller things. So that saved a good amount of money, which created some space within the budget to operate. I also projected some increases over the years when we created a budget. So we try to keep up with what nobody could have expected what would happen over the last couple of years. But we were pretty close.
And we also had carryovers that we, like other budgets, usually they get rolled up, but in this case, for deferred, that's the importance of having a deferred maintenance fund, because it stays in that fund, and then we can, the savings that we could attribute towards what Ken mentioned, we're able to carry that forward.
That's great. So did you have savings? Did you have more in your budget in the first 3 years that you could carry over into year 4 and 5?
I don't know the exact numbers, but there was a good carryover from year 3 to year 4.
Yeah, we did have
pretty substantial carryover.
But then it's rolling, right? Like
It
from
rolls and
4 to
grows.
5, we'll go to 6 and 7 and
Right.
so.
Yeah.
I mean,
Exactly.
plus that workload was so much more, it feels like, in
It-
this last year.
Yeah, there was a lot of larger projects. We're going to be focused the next few years on mechanicals.
That's great.
Anything else?
Thank you.
very much, Ken. Next up at the plate.
All right, so I'm gonna try to be quick, so I can save some time for our construction update, which will happen after this. So my strategic goals for this upcoming year, based on last year, what we did, I think, is we made a lot of progress from our goals last year, which were to increase transparency with the board and district and the community at large, hold more meetings and create a bigger presence on all the construction sites. We did do that. We also provided several reports throughout the year, which was another goal we had from last year. So this year, one of the goals that we carried over from last year was the facilities master plan. We're currently in the process of obtaining an architect to help us with that, and we plan to have one on board by November. And then they'll help us put together that master plan, which is based on our assessment reports throughout all of our campuses and our needs assessment that we've done over the summer. Next, we have El Rodeo, which is very important for all of us, I believe, especially Sarah. And Sarah did mention during her portion of the strategic plan that we're going to be creating a transition team to help us with the move from Hawthorne to El Rodeo. And we're starting that process now with creating a team and just making sure we're prepared for this summer coming up and making it as smooth and seamless as possible to move the staff and the students over to Albert Dale. Next on the list is talking about our future projects at the high school. You'll hear more about that in our next part of this study session, but basically we're trying to plan for as many projects to happen together as possible to get that work done and be out of the way of all our high school students and finish up with our projects over there. And then lastly, our social media outreach. We've increased that outreach thanks to Rebecca. We've been posting updates on social media. I'm sure you've all seen them. And also we have our monthly project updates and reports that we post online on our website. So I'm looking forward to our next portion of the construction update. So I don't want to take up too much time here, but if you have any questions.
Thank you. The monthly updates are great.
Great.
And I know you've received a lot of great feedback from
Yeah.
CVOC and all the other committees on the transparency, and they really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Will.
As do we.
Okay.
Oh, that's right now.
Yeah, that's
Oh,
Let's go
You
and
can do the
I
business
did.
stuff.
Alright,
Such a good audience.
yes. So, good afternoon, Board President, Margot, and board members, and staff and community. So in regards to the business services, specifically, because business services encompasses construction and facilities and fiscal. So this is more of the fiscal side of the plan. We actually have provided a final draft of our manual. We at our last leadership meeting, we actually went through a business services manual where we're looking to integrate the second step of the industry standard procedures, making sure that our processes, when it comes to, for example, reimbursements or travel and conference and any of those things that we do, is just being done. It's not being done incorrectly now, but it's just done in a more industry standard way. So that's something that we're working on. We've already presented, so we're really excited about that, and thankful to Marilu and the fiscal team downstairs because they all contributed towards their sections. Our goal with that is to just increase the speed and accuracy of our transactions. We want to get our employees paid as soon as possible and reimbursed as soon as possible, our vendors paid as soon as possible, so this will help us when everyone follows the plan or the manuals, things go through faster, and eventually it makes its way to the board in a more transparent way. Financial reporting. We are going to present our first interim, and we have, tonight we're presenting the unaudited actuals, which we have some good news tonight about that. But we're going to continue to present our financial reporting with just as much accuracy as possible as well. We're looking at completing our quarterly site survey, essentially in conjunction with our facilities and construction teams. We're going to be sending the survey out to our principals regarding the quality of services provided. It just helps us to just, understand where we're being deficient or where we're being great. And so we can keep it up or correct ourselves where we need to correct ourselves. So it's just a good way for us to just auto-evaluate. And so we're going to be sending that out relatively shortly. The audit report, we're currently in that process with our auditors to make sure that we complete the audit report correctly for both the general fund and of course the bond fund, as well as the performance portion of the bond fund. And finally, best HCM implementation, prepare and train for implementation at site and department level. It's essentially HCM, Human Capital Management. It's our new HRS system, which is Human Resources System. In other words, it's the payroll HR system that we use for our employees. We're transitioning to BEST, and that's going to be happening here real soon in October. So we're really excited about it. The coolest thing about it, and it might sound kind of crazy that I think it's super cool, but I'm really super excited, is that employees will actually be able to go online and look at their check. I mean, you don't understand how much revolutionary that is for a school district, because for many years, it was like you had to wait till you get the advice, and you had to wait till, or have one of our payroll clerks print out this old school report-looking thing that doesn't look like a paycheck at all. And so when an employee wanted to get a new mortgage, they had to depend on that. And now they'll be able to go online and print out their check and look at it,
And their tax
and
forms.
the tax forms, and update their information, and go to HR, you know, emergency, it's just a really
It's gonna solve
great
everything.
system.
Yeah.
It does
yeah.
dishes too.
Yeah, that's the next phase. It was too expensive at this point, but later on. But yeah, that's about it. That's what we're planning this year. So we're really excited about it, and open up to any questions.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Raphael. Anything?
I have one question.
Yes.
I mean, you spoke about, when you went to the sites and you've been working with the sites and all of admin for the budgeting process and
Yes.
and really building the budgets up from the ground up from a zero-based budgeting standpoint. And so I'm assuming we're gonna be continuing down this path and, as much as we can.
Yes. So.
implementing that, given the school district environment.
Yes, that's going to be crucial for us. I think for, you know, I was really happy that our principals were, you know, worked with us and they were willing to. I mean, it was great. It was a great transaction of, you know, them looking at their budgets and kind of doing their own kind of adjustments to what they thought. And it really kind of helped bring that zero-based budgeting approach. I haven't really exactly said, hey, this is actually zero-based budgeting. But they're kind of getting a taste of it. I think that's the next phase, like you're mentioning, is introducing that, because as you know, these COVID funds dissipate, the pot of monies that we can distribute shrinks. And so that with that, you know, we have to reevaluate different budgets. We have to reevaluate different areas. And so that's something that I think we're working together with our principals in developing. I think for this next budget year, we're really going to look at that. We'll probably do like a two-phase approach to our budget this time. Last time we just did where we sent them the budget amounts. They kind of itemized where it was, and we walked them through that. But I think this next year, there's probably going to be the zero-based approach, which is just let me know what you actually need, and then here's one of your actual budget, and then we could look at options with the board.
I'd like to see that added into the strategic plan, possibly.
Sure.
As a goal, because I think it's really important, and you started all that work last year, and I think it's really moving in the right direction. And I know this is something that boards in the past have talked about for years, and I think it's really wonderful that you coming on now, this is starting to happen, so I think it keeps the focus there.
Thank you, and you know, a lot of credit goes to our principals. I mean, they took it on, they turned in their sheets, and it was I didn't have to like harass anyone like, hey, where is your budget? Like, they were very receptive, and I'm just thankful for them.
Right, it sounds like a lot of it's been about empowering everybody and giving them the tools they need to be able to build those budgets and feeling confident to do so as well.
Definitely.
As well as when you talk about adding it to the strategic plan, the idea of the site-based zero budgeting, you would just want a mention of it in the plan?
As a goal and continued goal, yes.
Continued goal.
Sure.
It's more than site-based though, because it's also the different,
Yes.
Department.
We'll eventually shift to departments and everything. Essentially, it reverses the budget from like, here's
What you had last
$50,000, let me know what you need and allocate it versus.
I understand
Okay.
you saying that
Yeah.
we're giving direction as a board to
Yeah.
add something to strategic
I
plan.
think
I
it's
wanna make sure
district-wide,
that-
because that's what you started last year, was the district-wide.
Yes.
So,
Okay, are you all in agreement with that suggestion?
Well, it seems like it naturally is on this.
Sorry.
We're evolving to
Right, you just
that.
wanna clarify.
So it's
Reflect
not
it, yeah.
mentioned in here, so I think it should be mentioned.
Okay.
Raphael, how much in COVID funds are left?
You know, that's a good question off the top of my head.
Approximately.
I think it's about $600,000. I could definitely get you a better answer though. I don't
Not
have
that
the
much
number
as
off the top of my head.
compared.
No,
Yeah.
not much at all.
Yeah.
In fact, at the September, not tonight, but the next September meeting, we actually put together a really cool presentation. It's really cool. Graphically looks really nice. We're just wrapping it up. Where it's gonna show you, to the board and to the public and to our staff, exactly how we spent our COVID funds by resource and how much we have left for this year. But the cool thing about it is like, there's a pie chart and then there's like, you know, what we spent on it, and I think it's cool.
Yeah.
But it'll show
Clear.
us.
It's cool as seeing.
It
it
sounds
in
exciting.
It's clear.
Yeah, it's very
I
clear.
get it.
And we have like the top vendors and like what we spent our money on, it's like, wow, that's cool.
I think the community would be really interested to know.
Yeah, and so we have that ready. We actually had it ready for this meeting, but because the actual presentation itself is a little long, we're gonna not try to make it long, but it's a little lengthier. We don't wanna like convolute all the information in one meeting, so that's why it would be better for this
I
20.
feel like I saw it as a line, I saw it in the budget.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, colleagues.
Could I ask a question?
Absolutely.
What, I know you told us before, but what happens with the unspent COVID dollars? Not that we
Oh.
anticipate that that's
Well,
necessarily.
if you have
happening.
unspent COVID dollars, you have to return them to the state.
That's what I thought, okay.
Yeah, so we're not gonna do that.
Right.
I just, I'm happy to figure out a way to spend that money.
The other question I have is, Will brought it up, I'm curious, like what sort of, what would be the funding source for a transition team? Because there's a lot of things that go into, migrating the school from Hawthorne to El Rodeo, so I just.
It would be a bond.
Just a bond,
Yeah.
okay. So
And part of our team that will make up that plan, that the transition team, is already here working at El Rodeo.
Right, so that there's like coordination and organization, but there's also the manual labor, and that's all
Manual labor,
part of the
yeah,
bond.
will come out of the bond.
Yes, because it's an expense related to the construction of the site.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, food services?
All right, let's move on. Food services, so you didn't see this last year, but we're like, hey, let's make sure we implement it this year. And so we've seen a lot of improvements last year for food services, especially with the implementation of kosher meals. I thought that was a huge win that was recommended by our committee, our wellness committee, and we're thankful for everyone in our wellness committee for recommending these things. But essentially, we're looking to implement the Project School Nutrition, and essentially that means to roll out to all site food services staff like recipes and production records. We want to make sure that we're doing it in all of our sites, that our recipes are clear, and that we are able to then start developing more scratch cooking and doing things from scratch, and like that's going to be really important. And we do have some extra funds that we receive from the state for these purposes. They're called KIT funds, which stands for Kitchen Infrastructure and Training Funds, and we're really excited to spend that money. Essentially, we're looking to train staff and improve recipes with those monies, and an ongoing review and development of our menu items and recipe procedures. Our wellness committee kind of brought up a lot of good ideas last year of how we should look at and reevaluate our menu and just offer different options. So we're looking at really doing that this year, just working a lot more closely with having the right recipes for this. And we did increase our staff because of the increased monies that we're receiving, due to the California fully funding, nutrition services. So that allows us to then more fully implement these things, whereas before it was like more difficult, we didn't have as many staff members. Now we have more staff that we're able to do this. We're going to utilize our KIT funds to order serving equipment, implement refrigeration monitoring as well, so that our items don't go bad, and that we have the best equipment that possible, we can replace some things. So it's not often we get monies for that. We usually have to spend out of like general funds, so it's good that we got those KIT funds from the state. Wellness committee, we're going to continue to schedule wellness committee meetings to discuss the progress during the school year. That's kind of going to help us to make sure we're maintaining those goals of implementing these new ideas. And another thing that's come out recently is the food waste disposal. As you know now, there's like certain rules about how you're supposed to dispose of waste. So we're going to work with school administration and the PTA to get parent volunteers to help students sort trash and ensure food services staff is sorting trash correctly inside the kitchen. So that's going to be a major project in and of itself. We're working with some components of the city as well to help us with this, and so this is still under development, and as we move forward that'll be more polished, but it's something that we have to do. So but that's where we are with food services.
Do you get the KIT funds on an annual basis, or is it one pot?
So it doesn't happen on an annual basis. It has happened for the last 2 years. I don't see it happening anymore. It's rare that it happens.
Uh-huh.
I think it's with all these COVID funds and everything else. I think the state decided to do this, but I don't think we'll see them again.
How much were the KIT funds for last year and this year?
They were about $200,000
Per year?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So somewhere around there. So it's a good amount of money to just retrain and order, because these kitchen supplies are very expensive, especially refrigeration and all that. So we're looking to do some of those renovations there.
Thank you.
So,
Any other questions? Raphael, thank you very much.
Thank
for
you.
your update. Mr. Mead?
All right.
Thanks, everyone. Okay, happy to be here this afternoon. Thanks for having us. So our safety goals for this year. Okay, we have 3 goals, although you see 4 up there. The 2 middle ones go together. So the first one is having monthly security training. The idea is we meet at each site with administration, our BHUSD security officers, and as much NASTEC officers as we can have and still have our perimeter covered. So that means really at least one NASTAC. So we're meeting with multiple groups, and each month we are going to cover a different pertinent tabletop activity. So imagine the presenter, which is me, gives a scenario, and the people at the table respond, like they offer suggestions how they might respond. We calibrate, we take notes, we take away actionable items. So obviously, in terms of measurements, are we having the meetings, are there agendas, and what are the suggestions and how are they implemented? Second one is the district BHUSD emergency operations plan. It was very much time for an overhaul, and it wasn't just topical, it wasn't replacing a few words, it was a complete rewrite. If you have the actual strategic plan, it's quite granular by, and I can read it to you, but there are very specific dates and deadlines. Here it's just a little more general, but you can see kind of the important ones. Rewrite it by September 22nd, and meet with BHUSD emergency operation plan leads and members by October 19th. And we're going to have, during the Great Shakeout, as far as I can tell in recent memory, the first district emergency operations plan drill during the Great Shakeout. I think it's really important. We're going to be working with our community partners, and whether it's the emergency management manager or BHPD or fire, on what communications would look like according to the National Incident Management System. Right? So looking forward to that. October 19th is the culmination, although we'll still continue to get feedback and rewrite. So you'll see the second one, execute the earthquake drill on October 19th. So we're going to do search and rescue at all the sites. They're already pretty great at that, so we're going to do that again. But again, integrating the emergency operation plan for the district on that day. Quite a lot of work on the front end just to reach October 19th, and after that it's going to be review, reflection, coordination with the site safety plans. And last, similar to the goal from last year, we talked about strategic shifts and coverage. Last year, my percentage goal was not as ambitious as this year. We're going for a minimum of 95% successful covering of shifts each week related to JPA. In case, like, just kind of for the baseline, we're talking about 112 shifts a month, right? And documenting if and when there's a shift lapse, what happened and how it was covered immediately. So this is one of our goals. It forces our command center team, our community partners, and our BHUSD assets to all work together and communicate with one another about these shifts and about the effectiveness of coverage. So those are it's really 3 goals, although the 2 in the middle kind of go together.
So on the last one, what's the intention behind that? Is to demonstrate that during JPA hours,
yes,
we are there.
That we're there, that in working with our JPA partners, I've made this goal clear to them, and that it is essential that they communicate any concerns to us directly. To be honest, we haven't had any yet, which is awesome. We have had some interior, like, realizations, we need to cover that shift right now, and getting it covered. And even if it's something as, like, we had to cover an administrator there for 10 to 15 minutes while we get the other person there, I'm still counting even those, right? So we want 100% coverage, and we want to know before there's a gap, right? So generally speaking, we've had 3 total. Each of those were very short periods of time where we covered it. But like I said, any lapse at all, we're writing down when, where, what happened, how we covered it, and maybe why it happened.
And then in this context, by BHUSD, you mean our CSCA guards and our NESTEC partners?
Correct.
That's
Correct.
encompassed by BHUSD?
Correct.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I have a question
Sure.
about, one is the drills for all the different scenarios, emergency scenarios. Last year we spoke about like what
Right.
that schedule would be and how you were gonna hit all those marks.
Sure.
I don't see it listed in here, is it just
Correct.
because it's covered now, you feel like you don't need to put
That
it
is
in the
absolutely
goals?
correct. Last year, the expectation was all the sites do 1 per month, with the exception of the high school, they took December off, and I think May, right? So,
Now it's just standard procedure.
which is way beyond the state expectations, right? So we do 1 a month, and what I'm trying to do, for example, here in the month of September, our tabletop is related to a catastrophic earthquake in anticipation of the Great Shakeout. So what we're going to try to do is coordinate our tabletops in advance, you know, in anticipation of the drill coming up. So we're really actually going another level
Right.
in this. So yes, it's the expectation is, and it is happening. The sites have given the dates, so it's
Right.
based on that.
I think it would be great to have that mentioned in some way, just so
Sure.
that, because we didn't have it going on before you
Mhm.
took this position to such a, you know, we weren't covering it as efficiently, now we are.
Sure.
To keep it at the forefront, because I think it's really important that we're making certain that we're hitting those drills on a regular
That's not a
basis.
problem, yeah.
So even though I know now it's part of your
Mhm.
standard operating, and then speaking of standards operating, my other question for you is, for the command center, we had approved a long time ago a standing operating procedures, and I know that never really went anywhere, and it had any, it needed to be reworked, so I'm curious where that is and where you guys are at on that.
So, right, the precise name of that document is eluding me right now, but it's like the security manual is approximately what it says, BHUSD security manual, as opposed to, let's say, safety, right?
Right, I thought it was like a SOP or something.
It has SOPs, it's quite a long document, if you
Yeah.
recall. It is over 120 pages, I think.
Is it necessary, is it?
It's a good question.
Yeah.
I'll tell you one section that I'm using frequently, because it's my understanding it was board approved, right?
It was, as a working document.
Correct. So the part that we are using frequently is the use of force policy. So in our training with our security officers, really getting granular and specific about what is our district standard operating procedure around use of force. That one is really important,
Right.
right? There are probably other sections that maybe are less immediately actionable. So if the question is, where are we with that? I am using it as a board-approved document right now, but I admit that we are not using every single section.
Right, okay. I'm just curious if it's a useful document, I know that you're using parts of it.
Yeah, they're useful parts for sure.
Right, if that's another area of just
It could be.
evaluating that.
It's one that we can circle back to.
Making it a useful document
Yeah,
in its entirety.
Right, so, I mean, like, the emergency operations plan is a lot bigger goal than I think it sounds.
I think it's really,
yeah.
like, priority.
Right, but a goal similar to that, like
Mhm.
relook at it, we have a lot of partners to go over with. That is, if that were something for next year, it would be important for me to start this year, because it's that big.
Right, and maybe it could get integrated, that gets
Correct.
integrated into the whole.
So this one's very front heavy on this end.
Mhm.
It's probably something I can do the second semester, start looking at it, and then we can go from there and maybe make
Right.
it something for next year.
Terrific.
Cool.
So, we've had, I mean, over the last year or so, you know, we've had different issues with some of the best practices of the school resource officers. So I'm just wondering, you know, when it comes to training and not talking about the crisis or the drills and things that we do, how are you addressing that? That there are certain reminders and things that need to be done, like what happens if, for example, something happens on campus and you see it from afar, and those types of like daily best practices and protocols, like how is that addressed with regular personnel?
So, sorry, when you started, you were talking about school resource officers, right?
Right, or, sorry,
As
security
opposed-
guards, sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry,
Yeah.
so let me reframe, I thought we were talking about our BHPD partners. So
No,
we're
no,
talking
sorry.
about our
I know.
Beverly security
Yes,
officers.
yes.
And, can you restate the question, please?
I'm just saying, like, how do you, I see, and I think you have very good pulse on how we're gonna address some of the crisis training and preparing and being proactive, and that's great.
Mhm.
But given that there's been some incidents of, or questions about best practice for the security guards
Mhm.
here on campus, I'm just curious, like, how, is there a reminder, how is there training, supervision on a daily basis for what
Yeah.
they're supposed to be doing and not doing?
So I think it's a good question. Obviously, this month, we are looking at a catastrophic earthquake,
Right.
and
I
that's a
get
big
that,
one,
yeah.
right? Last month, though, we looked at a disruptive parent type of situation,
which is
right?
the everyday-
Which is much more kind of, and so
Yeah.
what happens is, we realize very quickly, are we calibrated at one site regarding communication? What does communication protocol look like? And so what happens is we kind of realize that we may not be exactly on the same page. Who knows what first and how does that happen? That was a very effective result of that first round of tabletop. So I don't want every tabletop to be this kind of crazy situation, right? Some of it is going to be a suspicious person. As an example, at the high school, one of the things that's great about these tabletops is our security officers have great experience, and they offer their insights, and we're able to utilize some of those. So radio communication and, you know, possibly creating a specific type of channel for security that only admin hears,
Right.
but they can communicate with all other staff who are on the radio. So things like this, like how to use your radio to communicate effectively and discreetly at the same time, I think that's more like what you're talking about. These are day-to-day things.
Yeah, that's.
Those are coming up.
concerned because there are some lapses in possible, judgment calls that have cost us, and I think it'd just be good to have a conversation about how you address that and, the standards that are set. Also, most campuses these days have threat assessments, like just yesterday, I conducted a threat assessment for a 6-year-old, who said, I wanna kill everyone, or
Yeah.
of course it's not credible, but you still have to go through that, and I know that happens every day, you guys have, these days, that's what we're dealing with.
Certainly have.
So it's unfortunate when it has to tap upon the resources of a lot of adults, but sometimes it does. If the kid escalates, gets out of control, they're in a hold and all that. So, I would love to see that in, some of these, when we're talking about daily protocol and oversight and supervision, I would love to see that there is some, that you are addressing not just the disruptive parent or the angry, belligerent parent, but also how you guys are dealing with some of the behavior emergencies that kids have, because often the security guards are called in to deal with it, so.
Right.
And I wouldn't want one to say, put their hands on a kid if they're not trained on the, the CPI, the Crisis Prevention Institute. Like mine has lapsed, by the way, so I have told you I'm not putting my hands on kids, I'm just
Right.
not.
When it comes to our security officers training regarding use of force, we work, and this was the training we referenced at the last strategic meeting, it happened in June 6, 7, and 8.
Right.
We work with Keenan, who is our insurance provider, and I think that's probably a best practice, because if anything, were to happen and, there were lawsuits or injuries or things like that, those are the people that we need to be calibrated with. So when it comes to use of force, that is the people that we're gonna work with. Obviously, we could use other providers and give them additional training, but that's where we land with that. Threat assessments, we have a pretty great multidisciplinary tool. Mr. Stewart and I have talked a little bit about the possibility of looking at other best practices at other schools regarding threat assessments, but we always use multidisciplinary, minimum number of adults is 4. So it is labor intensive.
Do you think it'd be wise, I don't know what you guys think, but if there was some sort of mention of dealing with behavior crises among some of these, regular check-ins or tabletop discussions or something that reflects that we're addressing the fact that kids are more out of control than they've ever been.
Absolutely. When we were discussing disruptive parent scenario, right?
Parents are out of control too. Okay.
Well, and to be honest with you, our parents overall are great, right? This was more of a theoretical than the hate happened last week and all the time. And it was a little bit on the more extreme side, right? Like one that's actually kind of scary, just right in that gray area, like how do you handle it? And it was an awesome conversation. But we talked about clearing the room.
Yep.
Right, and clearing the room is a great practice if you can, and we did turn that into a situation where you might have to clear a classroom.
Right, absolutely.
Right, so we didn't just stick to the adult in that scenario, but best practices are often like, hey, let's clear it out and let that person figure it out. No hands, no anything, so these things do come up and will continue.
Yeah, I just think now that we're dealing with more acute behaviors than ever before, there should be some reflection in general, whether it's a parent, a kid.
And I will say, it's tough to be a security officer, an unarmed security officer inside working with kids. We had one of our guards, there was an angry kid who jumped off a chair as if to attack somebody. I'm not sure he was going to, but it looked like it. Our security officer caught that kid and placed, it was beautiful, it's heroic, right? But when do you not? It was, everybody thanked him, and he's great, right? But in that moment, it's a hard call, right?
And I don't want them to be faced with that without some sort of.
That's the point, right? To really calibrate and support them in advance.
Thank you.
Well, I really like that, having the monthly.
It's really started well.
Yeah. Moving everything forward.
Yeah, it's been very productive. Like I said, we've got great guards, and they've got great experience in being able to put it all together. And by the way, I don't know if I said it, once we're done with the 4 sites, we meet at the end of the month as a group, and then kind of consolidate all of this great information. So we don't just stop at the site, we turn it into almost procedural, sometimes actually.
I think that's also great team building, which is a part we talked about in the
100%.
reviews. How do we really build our security team?
Yeah, the morale.
Integrate them
I
together.
totally agree.
So I really like
I hope it helps. It feels good so far.
Yeah, and we've done that here. So something that hasn't been done here, we've been so reliant on the school sites. They do such a good job. but our own staff here has been kind of left out in the dark. And so this plan was a big part of pulling us together. We have a lot of challenges here in this building because we don't have alarms.
Oh, yeah.
We don't have, I mean, we have a lot of challenges if there is a crisis. And so by bringing everyone together, and it's once a month, we're walking through our procedures for the first time. Walking over to the tennis courts. Every single employee is expected to come and be trained here, and that's the first time that that's happened.
I mean, I think that's really important to highlight because that's a big difference from where we were at and where we're seeing.
It's huge.
And you're really moving it forward.
Great
I mean,
to hear.
we talked about this last year, like you had really lofty goals when you first came in and you really hit them, and now you're moving to the next level. And
That's
it's
right.
just, I think it's really great to communicate that, especially to communicate to our families. And it certainly came through when we talked about the JPA that this is a different environment that people are walking into. They're having far safer and secure environments.
And for what it's worth, on the JPA note, just today I got feedback from a parent at Horace Mann who's also an AYSO coordinator, and so happy about the change of feeling of security in the evenings for the JPA stuff. He was very, very pleased about the change.
Great. Mark, thank you so much.
Yeah,
Thank
thank
you,
you all.
thank you so much.
And last but not least, Ms. Starhouse.
Hello friends, good to see you. Dustin sends his best. He wishes he could be here, I'm sure. This would be a much preferred place for him.
I don't think
No?
No? Really? Okay, alright. So if you have more academic questions, I'll do my best. These goals look similar to last year. They have been modified slightly because we didn't meet all of them last year. And when we came to you most recently, the results weren't all in. And that's kind of tricky about these awards is you write all of the applications and you submit them, and then you're waiting and you're seeing, and did we get them? Oh, and then you find out someone else got them. And they're really hard to get. It's very, very competitive in California and locally in LA County and nationally. Some of these things we achieved, lots of these things we actually were able to last year achieve. And then some of these areas we weren't able to even apply for, and major shifts have already begun in those areas to ensure that this year we'll be in a position where we can. So essentially you're looking at a very similar list that we had last year, because we do believe that it is a good representation of where BHUSD is at, and if we can meet these and even maybe win these, we'll be in a really great position. I will say an area to reflect on would be that program highlights. The Golden Bell Awards are really, really, really lengthy applications, and I think that Dustin would agree with me probably for the other areas also. The Teacher of the Year, I know he has mentioned, all of these are really long applications. And putting time into this area is so important. It's in the strategic plan that we have a wide recognition of excellence, but I do also want to mention that winning an award isn't always a reflection of that, right? Is that the best measure for the board? We've heard you, yes that is, and so that's in there, but also for us, and you guys have said many times that this matters to you also, there's a lot of value in what's happening and being celebrated locally, in our local papers, on social media, which is going far and far wide, in national newspapers now that are getting picked up online. So awards are one measure of wide recognition of excellence and success in our classrooms and as a district as a whole. But I do want to mention that there are other ways to also measure this. They're just less clear, because you either win or you don't win when you have an award. So I think that that's something that I've reflected on in this space, and if you have any feedback, we're happy to make adjustments. But that's kind of sums it up, unless anyone has anything to add.
Well, I think Rebecca, some of the point in that was we never had applied for these awards before. And I think that's where we want to change the dynamic of the district to try to set ourselves up whether we won the award or not,
Right.
but at least have something to apply for,
Mhm.
right? That we always have something to apply for. We always have something that could potentially win in those categories. I think that's more of the overarching goal,
Yeah.
you know, at least in my thinking.
Yes, and we won many last year, so that was great.
For me, I understand and wholeheartedly agree that awards are not, you know, it's not where it's at for me personally. I think the aspiration is great, but it doesn't necessarily do us justice to all the good stuff that's going on. But one thing I would love to have a future study session about is the US News and World Report ranking. Just because I really would like to understand it better. And just as you said with the awards, sometimes they don't even apply to us. I would like to understand it, to understand if it does apply to us, does it mean something about us? In years past, I had looked up like Oak Parker, Las Virgenes, and so on. This year, I happened to look up Pali High and Santa Monica High. And so to me, those are two really good comparables. And I personally would be very interested to see a 5-year summary of where BHUSD has ranked as compared to those two neighboring schools. Just to learn a little bit more about ourselves and learn a little bit more about them. You know, you talk about La Cañada or Las Virgenes, but we have schools within 15, 20 minutes of us that could really be, you know, a point of resource. So I don't know if my colleagues agree or not. I can meet with Dustin separately if it's not something that you folks are interested in. But I really would like to delve into it to figure out where have we been and where have they been and where are we going. I'm curious to know, is it one thing that is dragging our scores down or is it 5 things? So is that something that everybody would like to participate in?
Yeah, I mean, when I was looking at the US News and World Report data, and there's approximately 1,018 school districts in California, so 1018, right? And according to the link for the US News and World Report, we are 692 on state assessment. So we are very close to like the last, you know, towards the end of the list of, you know, 1,000 school districts. And then if you look back and you look at, it's largely like a math issue. So I mean, I feel like, you know, we could even devote a study session just to elementary school math and what happens around, you know, 4th or 5th grade where it just starts to go, you know, and there's a lot of reasons for that. But I mean, I love that we're having, you know, math family night and those types of things. But I mean, to answer your question, I feel like one major factor is that math just takes a real dive and it really affects our state assessment performance.
And even like you brought up a number, I was going off of a different number.
Right.
And so that's why I really would like to have Dustin's take on, hey guys, the scores for these 3 schools in the last 5 years have been as follows. Because my interpretation is that BHUSD dropped a little bit from last year to this year, but I have no way of verifying that that's correct.
Yeah,
So let's get in the room and talk about what is it really.
I've reached out to Dustin already.
And I know you're just the messenger on this one.
I'm just here to look
understand.
good.
Yes.
Like sure, yes, he can do a 5-year comparative analysis. No, I don't know.
It's a very
Yeah,
healthy
commit him to
discussion.
it, please. It's a
You
good
know,
discussion to
it's
have.
it's very scientific, it's very
Yeah.
political, it's very,
Yeah.
but to
Yeah.
talk about that and have a conversation, I think is a healthy
I
conversation.
mean, I think we've talked about this in the past, and it is feels somewhat repetitive, but I feel like it is a conversation we should continue to have and understand, like, why did certain schools go up in what way,
Yeah.
and is there more, like, put it in context, like, is there something we're missing behind the
Yeah.
scenes that we're not seeing in these final presentations, so that we can appreciate where we are?
Yeah, exactly.
One, to improve, and 2, also to appreciate where we are and what we have done in a positive way. So I think it's for both, but to just have a good perspective about that, because these come out, like, when I, you know, we look at this in this very first category of US News and World Report, the national schools to watch, distinguished schools, I feel like those are measurements that are looked at. And so I understand that an award is an award and a ranking is a ranking, but at the same time, I think that, you know, we have a goal of educational excellence, and I think that this is a goal that we've said, so we should understand where we are and what's in our way of achieving that, in what ways. Because I think it does inform us on how we want to focus. In some ways, I mean, certainly, you're not going to teach just for that, so.
Right. And also, as a board, is there something we should be doing better or differently to support our team? So it's not just a pointing fingers thing, but it's a collective, like, are we really getting scored low on something that actually is not, you know, just really dig into it, so
Right,
I'm
and
ready
we need
for
to
that.
prioritize our dollars someplace else,
Yeah.
or put more resources in other areas that we think would be beneficial.
I think we
Which
can
I think
look-
is what we've been doing,
We can
thus
look
far.
into framing a positive discussion about that.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Rebecca.
Matt?
Are we gonna take a couple of minutes so we can switch the room for construction?
Yeah, well, it's been a couple minutes to set it up.
Yeah.
Wait down inside if you're still out there.
Yeah.
Thank you, everybody, really.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you,
I believe, Dr.
everybody.
Breggy, we are
Mandy, what-
voting on the final plan at the next meeting.
So, I was really like.
With the changes we discussed.
No, I said, everything else. Oh, it's coming back to
Yeah.
final approval at the next meeting.
I just need to log into my Gmail, I don't need to log into.
You turn it off?
Yeah. Oh yeah, you can turn it.
Oh,
So Judy, looks like we landed on that.
That's okay, but I can't remember, it's like.
I was reading this.
It wasn't like your email. So,
God,
I didn't look at it until this phone.
I am right.
Did you have
Are we rolling?
Yes, it's recording.
Okay, part two here. Sorry about the late start on this.
Yeah, it's recording.
Sorry, not sorry, I guess. But we'll try to get through everything as quickly as possible. We do have a packed closed session today, so keep that in mind. Thank you.
All right, with that being said, I'm basically going to turn it over to Amin and our design team to present the first part of our update here, and we'll just get started.
Sure. Good afternoon, board members. So this is basically the follow-up to our last study session. You had some comments and questions regarding how to finish the Grand Lawn. There were some conversations regarding the ADA parking in front of Building C, and our design team worked on all of that, and I want to ask him to join me up here to start with the changes and the proposed basically solution to those comments.
Okay, perfect. So this is our latest rendering. We heard the comments that we had last time from the board regarding the parking on the front lawn, so that's been removed. We've, in a later slide, we tucked it into the plaza, pointed out here. The ADA parking off the fire lane, so it's not on the front lawn anymore. It's not going to be as present. The one thing that we are showing in here that came up as part of our plan review comments is per the new green code, we need to have 20% area shaded on the lawn with trees in a matter of 15 years. So I think there's two options here for how to kind of general locations of where trees should be. So this one's kind of around the outer perimeter, and the next slide is.
So this is how it
Oh,
was
thank you.
actually.
That's the old one.
Yes.
Yeah. So this basically shows the changes between this one and what was proposed in the last meeting.
Mhm. Oh yeah, so the rendering, that's what it was showing is kind of along the perimeter, and then the next plan is showing trees along Moreno. So that would kind of obstruct the view of the lawn. We're kind of looking for feedback on potentially
What was
which.
your thinking behind the two different layouts?
Well, one was,
Besides the 20% coverage.
besides the, oh, 20.
Yeah.
Sure.
I mean, you choose the way you did.
Yeah, this one kind of give a little bit of cover to the front of the school, if that's what was required. But on the other one, kind of preserving the lawn presence and kind of flanking the perimeter.
And you need direction on this?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'll kick it off. Since we don't have gate plan, you know, fence, security fence plan, I mean, we have renderings done, and I know stuff's been drawn up, but I would not necessarily put trees
Yep.
in that front area,
Yep.
because you're gonna have the fence anyway.
Perfect.
I also, unless we are in the other drawing, the other tree rendering, that looks like an orchard, and I'm.
Yes, I get you.
And I'm cool if we're gonna grow something and actually use it, but I don't know if we're gonna do that.
What do you wanna grow?
Listen, avocados are great. So,
I have an avocado
I
tree in
know.
my house,
Gonna be
and the
good.
squirrels are the beneficiaries.
Anyway, I think the other one, the other drawing,
Yeah, that
serves
kind
a purpose and is more like the layout, the original layout of the trees on campus. To have it done in
Yeah.
the perimeter, and then perhaps there'll be some benches in between trees to have shaded.
Yeah, and we'll line the procession.
But
the original.
I'll start it off and say I support this plant design, colleagues. Any input?
No,
Any direction?
agreed, I
Yeah.
support the plant design too.
Mary?
This is scheme one.
Yes.
I'm just, I mean, this top area, I mean, where you had the orchard, that's why I was asking, like, what was the thinking, is that so that people could hang out under the shade up on that top area, so it kind of extends even more the patio area where it would be just kind of a natural flow onto that grass area,
Mhm.
but you'd have a lot of shade there. So that's, there's something about that that I feel is really nice, to have shade trees in the center part of it. Like,
Gotcha.
maybe not that many, like even if you had 2 trees, just like,
Sure.
you know, like how Hot the Horseman has
Mhm.
some trees scattered, so that it creates a reason also to be up in that upper area, and you can move into it, not just be on the perimeter. You know what I'm saying?
Hang out.
Like, yeah, I mean.
Yeah, I mean,
it's
like the
there's
2 trees in the BV courtyard.
Yeah, so then like you can hang out.
Yeah, I don't.
Sounds good. So it
As long
sounds
as-
like.
as long as that,
So the previous plan,
Oh,
adding a couple trees.
adding 2 trees in the
Yeah,
center.
right in the middle.
And
Of
the
the
number
upper-
of trees is dictated by the requirement, right? That's why you
Correct.
have this number of
Right.
trees. Is this
Yeah.
the minimum required trees, or?
Yeah.
You're talking about like right here?
Yeah, just a couple of trees. But what I would ask though is that gonna affect, because it's eyesighted to classrooms and offices and stuff, so is that gonna affect anything regarding security? I would at least make sure that question is asked and answered before we just drop 2 trees. It may not, I don't wanna have I don't wanna be short-sighted.
Okay.
Just stick trees nilly-willy and somebody say, well, you should have put one there, cause now somebody could do this.
And
you
then
know? So.
are you gonna call out the species,
Yes.
of different trees? So
Yeah.
I'm assuming they're not all gonna be the same trees, so.
Yeah, we'll work with, yes, we'll work with the district on that. So it sounds like the feedback, the bottom half from here down, generally okay, and then up here, we'll develop this a little bit more for more gathering area.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like Mary's suggestion, just a couple of trees kind
Yeah.
of centered, like,
Yep.
It feels
like,
more park-like.
like the BB courtyard,
Perfect.
just to help.
So, does that mean just as an alternative to create, for example, a more courtyard up top? I just wanna flesh through an alternative idea. You're definitely maintaining the breadth of the grand lawn, it's definitely grand in this approach. I'm just wondering, do we wanna have more courtyard up top so that the front lawn starts a little bit closer to the street, a little further away from the building? Or do we definitely wanna keep it as just a walkway immediately in front of the building?
Like making the orchard a courtyard?
Yeah,
I think we'd have to, first of all, the rendering shows all grass.
yeah,
And I don't know if we're doing all grass anymore.
Well, it's
I
just
don't-
ground cover.
right.
Right,
Right.
so I don't,
So I'm just putting it out there, in terms of operations of the high school, would it be nice to have, we have the career center courtyard immediately to the left.
Yes.
So that's there,
And then only one tree.
with the one big tree, and
The OG.
there's, yeah. So this will be our last chance, I would say, at a bite at the apple, if we wanted to, create a courtyard in the upper front lawn.
Anybody's thoughts?
that's a hard question for me to answer at the moment, because
Yeah.
the kids don't know what they don't have.
Yeah.
So I don't know what they're gonna utilize
Yeah.
at that point.
It just seems like a great gathering space.
They're gonna
Yeah,
gather
like-
there anyway,
Yeah,
whatever we
that's
put
why
there, they're gonna
they can gather there, but, I'm just wondering, is this an opportunity for us to create more outside space
What-
for them?
When you say courtyard, are you thinking hardscaping, like
Yes.
concrete?
It
Yeah.
could be DG or something, no?
What's
Like the
DG?
paths,
Decomposed granite.
so it's not
Yeah,
necessarily all
that's what they have in
hardscape.
front of BV.
Well,
That's-
DG, they would not sit on the floor on, right?
No, but you
Yeah.
have grass, but
You
like
you basically
pathways.
extend this courtyard area.
Yeah, that's what
into
I'm,
space.
exactly, that's what I'm thinking. I
well,
just think it's an opportunity to create more outdoor space. And unfortunately, Mr. Stewart's not here at this moment, he's probably the most familiar with like our functioning.
I would support a park-like gathering area as opposed to a courtyard. I'm not a fan of adding concrete.
What is
Me
park,
neither.
like,
So you could have
mean-
benches
Like the
and
front,
Yeah.
like if you take the
pathways.
front of BV,
uh-huh,
that has some drought-tolerant plantings, benches, decomposed granite, that
Walkways.
stuff, so there's places
Yeah.
to,
Right.
to gather and
Yeah.
sit.
park like, good
is-
description.
That's fine with me, as opposed to just flat
Right.
ground covering.
Right.
I think that
Like
would
create
work
an
and it would.
environment.
Just make it a
Okay.
little more,
Is that-
useful.
So like adding
From
tables
a-
and stuff.
From a cost and structure standpoint, like, is that going to increase the cost a lot in terms of the foundation that you need to put into place to do that?
If you do like a flat roof versus DG.
If we just have, like, say we had some
The only thing that
pathways or
this
whatever.
adds, because if you are gonna make this like a walkway, right now you are showing like this as a landscape area, so
Mhm.
you are not dealing with ADA. As soon as you
Ah.
are adding a walking area, now you are adding ADA component to that, so now you have to make more flat work, you need to do
Understood.
grading, so that's something
So
that you
that's
need to
what-
consider that's gonna add to the cost.
That's what I was asking.
Take it back, extend.
So then, I think that other thing is you can add benches in that area
Right.
and bring the trees
Yeah.
into
Yeah,
that
that's what I-
area, so it, by nature, like,
Yeah.
just the way it's set up, you would go in there and
And
sit or.
if we put benches, does that trigger ADA?
Yes.
Sit on the
So
ground.
it's just, okay, but then if we're doing
Bring
DG
your own lawn chair.
in that area, the kids would not necessarily sit under this.
I was thinking more of a pathway, like just it seems complicated.
If you put a bench, you have to provide equal
Access.
opportunity for people
Yeah.
to
Access it.
get to the bench,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah, if you show any pathway, it kind of triggers.
And I know we have benches along the hardscape part
Right.
already.
Yeah.
Along,
I think
The
I'm
front
good with
bit.
adding some trees in the middle, so it
Okay.
just makes it feel like it's a.
But no
Leave it at that.
bench or anything?
Yeah, I mean, we have the career center courtyard
yeah.
as
There's
a,
plenty.
And
see.
the EDC is also, you know, a lot of concrete and we do a lot of events there,
Okay.
and so, but, you know, keep in mind too, this is it, when it comes to, like, the green area, this is it,
Right.
right here, so, like, keeping as much of that,
Right, I like
Yeah.
keeping it green, I just would like it to make it inviting to like hang out on there, so.
Okay.
Like the way how the trees are, it's almost like head-like feeling that I know they're trees, but so that's more, it's open so you would walk into that and they could, you know, hang out on the,
Okay.
whatever the.
And since the benches are already there and the trees are already lined along those benches, you already have your shaded
Right, so you
seating.
could go in
And the
just hang out.
courtyard.
You'll have and the courtyard,
it's
you'll
an
have the
extension to the courtyard.
Yeah, so it just
Okay.
makes it more of a,
Okay. So then just, like
Add
I
a few
said,
trees in
Mary
the
said,
middle.
add a couple of trees in the
Yeah.
middle there.
yeah,
Okay.
Call
make
it.
it feel park-like.
Yeah.
Call it, okay. Thank you, colleagues.
And then there was a discussion last time about Grand Lawn having it being the lawn or looking at potential drought tolerant plants. We didn't produce a planting plan
Uh-huh.
on this, but we're showing some options on what it could be. It's similar to what was done at B1, B2 Courtyard.
Mhm.
So I don't know if that's something that the board is still interested in or if they want the lawn. We could develop this further if needed, but
I mean, I think, as opposed to a lawn, it could be a ground cover, but then, accented with some of the drought tolerant plants, so it's not just straight.
okay.
Or ground cover.
So it's not the intent to have like a graduation or anything on the lawn anymore, or big gatherings where you would need to.
yeah, I'm a lawn fan,
Okay.
personally.
I'm a fan of anything that enables them to move around and to be
Yeah.
active, because I've seen kids, you know, like 10, 15 years ago, they would play football or do something
Yeah.
informally, and I wouldn't want it to be that our accents are something that has to be, like, they have to avoid certain areas.
Mhm.
Although, no, to be decorative is fine, but I would say, you know, to preserve
You like
the
an
large.
open space.
Yeah, an open space for kids, to do what they want, but I also do agree more with drought tolerant, because so many times we see like little puddles and like really unsightly areas of lawn, and it can be avoided if there's a little more variation.
Sure.
Do
I
we
think-
wanna talk about a very high quality turf
No.
that has a natural look to it?
The truth
Okay.
is, it gets hot.
I think it's not a
I'm
possibility.
just throwing that, I'm
Yeah,
throwing it out because
yeah.
I agree with you, Judy.
Yeah, it gets
I
hot.
think,
Dogs going.
I think this should be as lawny as possible,
Yeah.
but
Right.
take under consideration water restrictions and all of
Yes.
that
Yeah.
stuff. Because I'll say, when we went here and we had the lawn, it was usually mostly brown, most of the time.
Right.
It was dug up because
The
people
reality comes
dug up and, you know, people are kicking it around and
Mhm.
divots and all that. And it wasn't, the bottom part tended to stay a little nicer because people didn't traverse that as much as the top part in between classes. But it was, that top part was wiped out pretty much all the time. And if you look at photos from old graduations, you'll easily see, it wasn't as pretty as the rendering,
So
I'd say, so.
I
How do
think
you
there's
get
a
to that?
hardy ground cover that's more drought tolerant than
Okay.
lawn.
Yeah.
And so it feels and can look, operate, I mean, the use can be like how you would use lawn, you can walk on it, you can lay on it, you can play on it, but it's
Right.
drought tolerant. So
Okay.
I know that Wendy Nystrom from the Public Works Commission has brought up that froggy fruit as a really great ground cover that looks and feels like a lawn. I know there's a lot of different options out there, so
Okay.
I think we should go down that path first before we just go into a straight lawn, because it can look and feel like a lawn.
I
Are,
agree.
Tight.
are these considered ground cover, the 4 items?
Yes, those
Those are ground cover?
Yeah.
So those are, they're grand lawn alternatives which are more drought resistant?
Correct.
Okay.
Okay.
Ben, we don't have to decide on this piece right now.
Well, the sooner the better,
I got
because they
you.
wanna proceed with the design.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I would move forward on the A design of what this should look like.
Yeah, I mean, I agree.
too.
As drought tolerant, close to lawn as possible.
Mm-hmm.
That's.
Okay.
Allowing for.
Please.
We can
Okay.
let
Open
the, we can
space.
let
And
the
then
experts.
accents with drought tolerant plants.
Right.
Yeah, I think the way it used to be is, it used to be rolling hills, and where it sloped, used to
That's
have.
where the drought tolerance is.
Yeah, correct.
Mhm.
Exactly.
Right.
Well,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
perfect.
I think it's called tangle something. I'll send it to you.
And then this was a quick diagram of where we put the parking for building C, and showing how potential traffic flow could work. So I think we were placing 6 parking spots, I believe, 1 ADA accessible. There would be no charging stations. The charging stations are only triggered if you provide more than 9 spots, I believe. And 5 regular parking spots, and these would presumably be kind of VIP parking.
For short term.
Yeah, yeah. It would be on the opposite side of the security gate, so you wouldn't want people going in and out too much.
okay.
Thank you.
So basically that eliminates the need to the charging the station and, again, we were discussing having this is not gonna be a public parking.
Right.
It'll satisfy ADA and, or DSA.
So this says it's mainly for building C, so the upper buildings like B1, B2, and building A, there'll be ADA parking covered up.
Well, we have the new parking
And
that's.
the new parking lots that we are
Oh,
having.
yeah.
Yeah. So you'll have that parking lot and you'll still have the building A parking as well.
All right.
So everybody's okay with this design moving forward?
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say I'm still very apprehensive, and I know we had long conversations about this, about building a brand new building without parking underneath. I think it is a ill-advised move, and that we should find other ways, because one, we already have the plans with the parking and they're approved, so we can get started as soon as we were able to get started. And two, it's people 10 years, 20 years from now are gonna say, what kind of idiots put a new building up without putting in parking? Nobody does that.
Well, we'd have
So-
to find financing.
And I think we should do a better job of finding financing. That's been my mantra all along.
Broke
I
idiots.
love the, what?
Broke idiots.
Broke idiots, exactly. No, but often we find ourselves looking at buildings built in the past and wonder why, like the bridge to nowhere at Beverly Vista, you know, why did they do that? And why didn't they fight for a better solution? So this is my opportunity to say that, so I will say it again. And we can revisit this if we need to on the budget side of it, Raphael, but I think it's a conversation before we move forward full steam that this board should consider definitely finding funding to complete this project correctly, and I believe that includes putting parking below that building C.
Well, I think you have to consider a couple of things, and I think we would be able to speak to it better, is by doing so, it's not just a financing standpoint, it's time and the sequencing of everything else. So what does the impact of that mean in terms of finishing the school, and how much further out will it take to finish the school so that we can have the high school finished in terms of how it's sequenced, and how much more time and money will it cost ultimately to do so?
Well, considering the plans are already approved and ready to go for that with the parking, that would eliminate resubmitting the new design to DSA. So that would save you time on that.
Is that correct? The plans are approved?
The plan for building C is approved, but based on the last conversation that we
Right.
had, we were just under the assumption that we are moving forward
Yeah.
with the changes that
Because
we
it
made.
was a
For
budget
a lot of
issue.
reasons.
It was a budget issue.
Yeah.
But
It's
I
budget,
just,
timing, sequencing, you know, certainly money, because money was our number one issue. We didn't think we were even, you forget that we didn't even have the money to finish the rest of the whole school. So it wasn't like we were just gonna finish building C and then not have fields and not have all the, you know, the other parts.
we talked about bridging that funding and with COPs and other things. That was a conversation that we had, that we kind of swept aside rather quickly, seeing the opportunity, well, here was a solution. And it is a solution, I just don't think it is the right solution for the long term of the district. Most of the work we're doing in our district is rehabbing old buildings. But the one new building that we put up at Horace Mann, without a doubt, parking. We put up a new building, we put parking underneath it, it was never a conversation. So to put a building this massive without having parking underneath it at all, and remember, we took it from 3 stories of parking to 1, I just think we can do better.
I mean, I
think we can do
definitely
better.
have had concerns about the exact same issue, especially because as the mom of 3 kids in this district, I am here 24/7 for non-BHUSD activities, for JPA activities all evening and all weekend long. So to your point, I agree wholeheartedly that the parking lot there, I think, would be helpful, but when we put it, I feel like I've had this conversation with a lot of
Right.
different people. Tim, I know you wanna, were you wanting to opine about, from an operational perspective?
Yeah, just because we do get complaints all the time about, you know, you're gonna remove the 30
Yeah.
places we have down there and everything is gonna be pushed back up to where day 1 is.
Yeah.
And so, I'm agreeing with Noah in terms of that. You've now built a facility and people are gonna have to walk, you know, half a mile just to get to
Yeah.
the venue to watch and participate.
Yeah,
in the
for
game.
example, like and I've mentioned this to you, I mean, as well, like we have BHB out for our entire community all weekend long, from 8 AM Saturday morning till 6-7 PM. The families are come and going, it's Beverly families, Warner families, etc. And then again on Sunday. So operationally, it means that the families, without a subterranean parking, the families will have to go through the Moreno entrance, drive all the way to the south side, and then walk through, which has given me a lot of heartburn that we're gonna be having these families interacting and going through our facilities. We talked about putting gates up at different locations, so,
And it's a neighborhood problem too,
Yeah.
because I'm usually here on the weekends too, and it's people parking all them through the neighborhood.
yeah, nonstop.
Yeah.
I'm with you. That doesn't even account for AYSO,
Right.
the, you know, the U16 and U14 boys and girls groups going till 8-9 PM at night. I'm here picking up all week long.
Can you
as well.
remind me though, I mean, I thought with this new parking structure, the new parking lot, we're actually ending up with more spots
Yes.
than we would have had we gone underground. So we're not losing parking spots, but the difference is that you're not having less parking, it's that you have to walk from the parking lot to the building.
The location.
I mean, is
And
that
is it
really a
done
half
in
a
a-
mile?
Is a domino effect you need to consider. We change the elevation of the site to accommodate all of these. We remove some retaining walls that's supposed to be built. It's not like that you are gonna build building C. Definitely you are not gonna have money to finish the rest of it.
Right.
So that's given. So it's like gonna be $50-something million short. That's your call, but again, we were under the impression that we are moving forward based on the last, and everything was arranged around that presentation. If we are going back, again, we need to know because we are losing time on that end as well.
Well, I mean, you also
we
shared
made a decision.
the retaining walls is a big issue.
Yes.
So if we were to put in building C, it's not just the expense of building C, but it has the domino effect of the retaining walls all the way to the south wall.
Yes.
Right, so it's
Again,
millions more.
By moving these fields to the upper field and following the gradual elevation of the site, we eliminated 1.5 retaining walls technically. So that's something that you need to consider if you want to go back to the old plan. All this reconfiguration needs to go back to that.
So Noah, this is a $50 million differential.
The composition of the savings that we were able to generate by doing the rearrangement is about $50 million.
Right.
The difference.
That's just for the sequencing and.
Yeah.
Yeah, the whole thing, not only building C.
Right.
Well, it's because that, you know, the way this looks now was contingent on that parking being moved. And if you did do that, then you would have to, I think in the other plans, there was some other movements around here that we had to touch the lawn.
There was no budgeting for that,
Yeah.
there was no budgeting for all the upper lawn.
For the lawn, yeah.
So it's not just that.
I'm
The rest of it.
clearly aware of the scenario that we are in
But
financially.
we're getting the same number of parking spots, so if your issue is about having enough parking,
It's not about having enough parking.
we're
It's
not
about-
losing parking by not putting it underground.
It's not the number of parking spaces that concerns me. It's where the parking spaces are located, and it's the fact that we're putting in a new building without parking. Nobody does that. Nobody puts in new buildings anymore without parking. In fact, it's required. You have to have a certain number of
Hi,
spaces
Rochelle.
when you construct a building. I understand everything that you guys are saying. I'm not oblivious to it, but I also had discussed last time when I made my feelings on this known, is that you could hold off on the south field work. You're short $50 million to finish the entire project. You don't have to finish the entire project to get the building built and open it, and you will still have a football field. You won't be able to work on it right now, but you'll still have it. And that's my point, is that it's not that we're not gonna open up the building because we don't have the other 50 to finish the south site work. That's how much that south site work costs. And that's a decision that the board has to make. And listen, the majority will make the decision on this, but I will not support moving forward with this building without parking. That I will say 100%. I think that is absolutely the wrong move to do. And I think if we have to sacrifice the future baseball field and reconfiguring the football field,
And the upper
that's what
lawn.
gets sacrificed.
And the van lawn, because we didn't have that on the budget
I
either.
don't think that's sacrificed in this. I think that's different.
I think we can still do the grand lawn,
yeah.
but yeah, it would affect the
All
baseball
the
field,
south
the
side.
softball field.
Yes, that's what we're not gonna be able to touch that yet, but we'll have everything else done. And if we do come up, like Raphael said, in 2025 to 28 with the extra funding, then we can move forward with that part of the project, but at least we would have done this stuff correct, in my mind, correctly. So I'm not gonna say anything else about it. You guys can give direction as you see fit, but I just think it's a bit, it lacks long distance vision on this if we don't put parking in that building. So.
Well, we were under the impression that was already the decision that's been made, but if we're going back, then that's fine.
This is my last chance for me
Yeah.
to say something about this, so I wanted to say it, so I will have said my piece, and that's all I can do.
Okay.
I mean, no, I appreciate what you're saying, I also appreciate the fact, I mean, this is like our third or fourth meeting, maybe our fourth meeting on this, I think at least our fourth. So, at this stage now, to go all the way back to square one, seems very counterproductive, since we as a board have agreed every step of the way and given this direction for them to move forward, and we gave them direction with regards to the financing. I understand you're having this concern and you want to raise this now, but it's also, I mean, we've been moving all could be in this direction. So, I don't think that that's very productive at this point going forward.
Except that we have approved plans for the other way, so that changes the conversation a little bit and it will accelerate.
But we
If
had
we
that,
do-
we had that when we started these conversations over 4 meetings ago. And but it was an issue of
Right,
really,
and
it's not simple as the plans and the dollars. It was all the other components that go into making this work, is all I'm saying. I don't think you can simplify it like that, and I think you guys can speak to that. It's not that simplified. If we didn't have more parking in the solution that they found, I could agree with you that parking would be an issue, because I think we have to make certain that we have parking. But they were able to find in a very efficient and creative way to find the parking so that we didn't have to go underground. And that creates an ability for us to finish this and finish it faster and to have a complete school. And we forget how long this has been going on in the high school. At the same time, we talk about our budget and cutting back on our budget and what it costs for the school. We talk about what the cost of construction is doing to our school and to our community and what the surrounding community. There's so many issues that we've talked about as to why we would want to be able to finish the whole school and completely, not just building C and leaving the rest of it for the future. I think that, the health of our school district and the satisfaction of our community and their taxpayer dollars, they want to see a finished school. And I'm not trying to be short-sighted or bury my head in the sand. We made a decision to work with the resources that we had to come up with the best solution that we could, and that's what these last 4 meetings have been. So it feels like we're going all the way back to square one, and we've had so many conversations about it. I'm happy to hear what everybody has to say, but I'm just gonna remind you, it wasn't just those 2 issues. It was so many different factors that we talked about that were necessary for us to finish. And, like I said, I'm happy to hear what everybody has to say.
If anybody wants to opine on this, it's on the table. I guess we would either keep on the current path or give direction to roll it back.
I just walked in, I'm sorry I'm late. I was under the impression, and I didn't hear all of what you had to say, Noah, but I do believe that when we decided, when they found a way to have parking, so building C, I was very relieved that we would not have to have underground parking, and that this would alleviate some of the cost by moving to another space to have. So to come up with this at this point, I was under the impression, and I don't know whether anybody else was, that was a big issue, that now we wouldn't need to have the underground when we could go with just the regular building and so on. So I thought that was what we were going to be doing. So that's.
Yeah, that is what we're doing, and.
Well, I didn't know, I didn't hear your thoughts on it.
Right, my thought was to use this opportunity to just bring up for the last time, probably I'll ever say this, is that to build a brand new building without parking underneath is ineffective.
Well, the question, do we need the parking?
Oh, yeah, we need the parking, because we're getting rid of the swim gym parking lot.
But they found the parking.
But they
in
found the
lot.
parking lot.
It's more
Yeah, but-
parking
but-
spots than you would have
Right.
had you gone underground.
Let me finish, Mary.
I understand that, Mary, I really understand that it's more spaces. I just think the idea of building a new building without parking included into a building is not the best course of action. I'll also say that the parking lot where it's located sits right in the middle of all the athletic activities. It's you have your upper field and your tennis courts, you have your baseball field and parking, and then you have, and it's just, it kind of breaks up to me that whole sports complex feeling that the original plan had. But listen, I don't want to beat a dead horse here. You guys agree with this plan, you supported it, you'll support it, you'll see it through, great. My thought was I'd rather finish what we can with the money we have right than have to throw things out and finish everything, just to get it all done. But I understand there's 2 different schools of thought here. I respect everybody's opinion. This is how a board works. You can vote how you want to vote. And that's all I'm going to say on it, because I want to keep the afternoon going.
One little thought that came to my mind, looking at the small parking amount of spaces next to the new building C, is there any way that you could cut out a little bit of the front lawn and?
No,
and
we already went back and did
Yeah,
that.
that was the
Okay,
original
that's
plan.
fine. I would be
going back.
That's-
I would
yeah.
say
Yeah.
one thing,
Going
Noah,
backwards, we
in
said.
response, I feel like it's not about doing it right, it's about doing it within our means and with all the different factors that we consider, and that's what I'm bringing up. Certainly, you could put it underneath, but you also could have parking over there. It doesn't mean that it's wrong, it means that within the parameters that we have to make the decisions and the different considerations that we've had, this is a really great option that we have that works.
Right.
So
It's
that doesn't
not
make it
perfect,
wrong.
but it's still.
I mean, when you're building anything, you can say, I'm gonna do, a lot of different things if you had an unlimited budget and unlimited time and unlimited, need for, fear of taking on risk and all the other things that can come into play. But we have to make decisions as a board based on what parameters we have and all the considerations that we took into account when we made these decisions and every step of the way that we got here. We can go back and readdress how we got here in all the different ways, but it wasn't just simply, it's better to have parking underneath. We also had issues and questions about, what does that mean when you get underground? What are the risks of going underground and all the other unknowns that could come into play that we don't know?
I don't wanna know what's underground.
We also mitigated a lot of potential risk of going underground and maybe that we didn't necessarily need to because we found another solution. It also allows us to finish everything and more than we were going to finish with a real set time and in a more efficient way. And we actually have a concrete plan to be able to do that. That's a far better place than we've been. And so it's all those things. I wouldn't say, if it was an ideal world, sure, we could have multiple levels of parking and we could have more playgrounds and we could have a whole pickleball court somewhere else. There's tons of things we'd love to do. And that's true with any time we're gonna do anything, but we are limited by the parameters. We've talked about the budget and not wanting to, we wanna cut down on our budget. We don't wanna take on a high COP that we can't necessarily pay back right away. The modernization funds are not gonna cover that in its entirety. It'll cover what we need to finish this, but it won't cover the plan that you're talking about. And so that puts more strain on our budget, on our general plan.
You also don't have to cover the plan I'm talking about, you can just do building C. If you wanna finish the whole school, that's a different conversation. Remember, we don't need to
Right.
keep going on this.
I understand.
Majority rules, they have direction,
But it's not
we
just
can move
majority
on.
rules, I'm just reminding.
But it is,
I'm
it
just
is,
reminding you
in this case it is, and that's okay.
Right.
I'm okay with this.
I understand, and I appreciate you in the last, possible chance, throwing this out here, because if not now, when?
Right.
So you better speak up now, again, if that's the case, and I appreciate that a lot, and I thank you for bringing it up, because we may all sit here and say, oh my gosh, what were we thinking? We've been going down the path and we forgot how we got here, and maybe we don't wanna go down this path anymore. So I appreciate you bringing it up. I'm just trying to remind you of all the factors that we brought into play. And one of the main ones, really, was about finishing the school. Like, if you took a poll with the community,
Yeah.
You don't wanna be
no
done.
one is gonna accept,
No.
we're gonna just finish building C right now. We're gonna figure out the rest of the lawns and everything else later. I just don't think that people can have
And
a
tolerate it.
stomach for that anymore.
Right.
You forget how many years this has been going on.
No, I don't.
It's just, I mean, yeah, you've been here.
Got a lot of kids.
Been here the whole
So if
time.
I may,
You've been here the whole time.
and I'm so sorry, but if I may, we do have to present the schedule portion.
Yes.
Please.
We would need about half an hour for this. Would you like us to continue, or do you want us to reschedule for another date? I know it's already 3 o'clock,
I'd like
but,
to.
I
Let's
think we're
continue.
actually fine.
Yeah.
We're okay with
Closed
this?
session, we're okay.
okay.
Okay,
So we
We
just
also
wanna
have
make
to,
sure.
we also
because-
have to cover the horseman issue too.
yeah, for sure, I wanna cover that, that'll
So see if you
take
can
5 minutes.
truncate everything into
Sure,
a half hour,
sure.
please.
No, sure. So the schedule portion is actually, there's some pretty good news there, so go ahead.
So, based on the directions that we had, so we moved together a master schedule, that shows completion of all these projects. Elliot, you might wanna come and help me on the timing a little bit. I don't know if you can see this or read this.
Well, they have a printout of all
Copy
of
right
it.
here.
Okay, you have it, great.
Yeah.
The first project that we are gonna start is gonna be the upper field, which consists of the tennis courts, the softball field, a small restroom building, retaining wall, and reconfiguration of the heat room. This duration that you see is a little bit misleading, but the actual project, which is the tennis court and softball field, is gonna be finished faster than what we have here. The duration here also includes the retaining wall that needs for building C, because we are gonna put it as part of this package, but the actual work that's basically the upper field can be ready a lot faster than that 300 something days that you have.
Which is approximately when, because what I'm reading is it says end of August 2025.
That's for the whole thing to be completed, including retaining wall. I'm assuming like the fields is gonna be completed at least 6 to 8 months before that.
I'm giving you a high five, Annie. Thank you.
So one thing that we are gonna send to you very shortly, I believe Raphael is gonna share with you, is the RFPQ for the design builder. We work with the legal team, the document is ready, and I think it's gonna be sent to you for the final review.
Okay.
And again, we are very...
And can you just briefly mention the different procurement method we're using?
Sure. So we are using design build for the project to fast track DSA and a little bit of construction. And one other thing that we are saving time is we are going through the procurement once. So we are selecting one entity that does the design and build, rather than just designing that and bidding that out. So it's a kind of faster process for the procurement, and also they can take control of the site faster and do some of the site work while they are finishing the design, like any demo grading and so on that doesn't need DSA can be done at the same time that design is being developed.
So in other words, the Grand Lawn and the upper athletic fields should be completed within like a year and 4 months from now, give or take.
Yes, but the ground line, we are gonna do it traditional design with because that's a small project, can be done, like we can, it's not anything complicated about it.
Okay.
And at the same time that this is being moved forward, the team is gonna design that, and we are gonna put that out for the bid.
Thank you.
The exciting thing is the upper athletic field portion would essentially be ready to be released, so that's
Yeah, a lot,
Kids can use
a lot
it.
faster.
Yeah.
Basically, the whole upper field can be released to the school, and
Yeah.
Right.
we are gonna be out of there.
And then when B3 and B4 are ready, the Grand Lawn will already be ready several months beforehand.
That's the goal.
And maybe B3 and B4 will be a little faster too.
That's I don't promise.
Elliot said he promises that's gonna happen.
Thanks, Phil.
Nudges.
Let's move on to the
Just
next
little
one. Building C.
Nudges.
Go ahead, next.
Building C, we are working with the design team to do the changes in the foundation, and we are waiting for CGS approval for the soil report. That's a key factor to redesign the foundation. And Elliot, based on that, when are we showing the design to be completed? Sorry, I cannot.
I can't. Design will be completed roughly this end of January 2024. We're looking to start construction roughly end of July 2024. And then we will be completing construction.
But that design doesn't include DSA review, obviously.
DSA review would be, we've estimated roughly 6 months. That would be end of January to end of July. Construction would go from end of July of 24 and complete middle of May of 2026. And that includes the demolition of Conheim.
So there would be like 6 or 7 months where, for example, the tennis team would be neither here nor there.
You have 2 small tennis courts
Yes.
that can be used by the Moreno here, temporarily till we finish the upper field.
Yeah, or we could hook up with Roxbury Park or the tennis center on Los Angeles.
But we again consider to keeping those not to be demoed, so
For
you
now.
have temporarily something to be utilized.
Okay, thank you.
The last piece is gonna be the south side project, and the key that's being pushed back is demolition of the Conheim. So we cannot do that, start that project without that. And Elliot, what were we showing for the timeline?
Yeah, so right now we've got design essentially going until end of May 2024. DSA going into DSA end of May 24 through roughly end of July 2024. We wouldn't actually be starting construction on South Site until June of 26, with a final completion of October of 27.
But that's kind of a good thing because we'll have the new building C up in May of 26. So it works good for our community.
That's also again part of this whole plan, because we cannot demo Conheim without
the
having
new
built
one.
this.
Thank you.
So we're talking essentially 4 years from now.
Yeah,
Right.
I got it.
I just don't think we can tolerate going beyond 4 years.
We don't.
But just opening up that upper athletic field
Yeah.
is going to be big for
Yeah.
us. I mean, that by itself is going to be
And
great.
that schedule is very conservative. One of the reasons that we are also picking a design builder, I'm hoping that this whole thing can be done shorter. I'm not promising anything, but our goal is to finish that upper field a lot faster than what we do.
And we're being very proactive by moving, because right now what's in that upper field, we have those, the maintenance and operations departments, kind of workshops, and then we have Founders Solari, we have Will's trailer there as well. So we have all these items. We're actually moving into the bridge now, and then Ken and his team are moving into different areas of the high school as we had mentioned. And so then essentially, that's going to facilitate us moving us a lot faster. Because if we don't do that quickly, then it'll delay everything. So we're doing. It's a multifaceted approach.
Also, we won't have to pay for trailers.
Yeah.
Yes.
This
yes.
looks great. Thank you so much for the detail, and the finesse and the integrity and your transparency. I appreciate it.
Yes, ma'am.
I just want to ask one more question. I see on the picture, and there's no mention of it on here as to what part of this it goes with, is the swimming pool that's going to be constructed on the other side of the, after the
that's the building
demolition.
C.
And of course, it cannot happen until it's demolished, right? Is that it also included in what the figures of the finances are in this project? Though I don't see actual swimming pool, it is included in this.
It's part of Building C project, it's already considered.
It's
So,
part of Building C.
yeah, the duration, we don't have a separate activity, but it's part of that duration for the project, yes.
Same with the
Okay.
cost.
Thank
Whatever
you.
you see building C, includes
Ah.
the pool.
So these.
No, I know,
It goes
yeah,
together.
I know that, but I'm saying that it's not anywhere that I can see in the plan.
It's under the project of Building C.
It's part of C.
Yeah.
The reason is because part of the same DSA package, we don't separate it, is just,
But
we
just that
we
it's a
just call
different,
it
but to
Building
me,
C
it looks like a
project,
different
yeah.
unit anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, a swimming
Yeah.
pool is not a building.
Yeah.
It's true, you could also add and pool, and outdoor pool.
Sure.
Where did it say that?
No, it could be added to
Well, that's the
clarify.
point, it didn't say that, that's why I'm saying I don't have that confirmation.
C is for country club.
Yes.
Everybody else.
Which includes pool.
The country,
All country club.
and a miniature golf
Tennis
course.
courts, country club.
It's true, it looks
Outdoor
amazing.
pool.
Where is our golf money person?
So finance?
All right, let's go to the next slide.
You saw me up here for this one?
Thank you.
Yeah, this slide is a
Thank
cool
you.
trick for those who are visually impaired.
I've seen this before.
It's just taking all that information on the previous
Yeah,
slide
it's-
and putting it on a.
We had no other way to
chart.
show it, I just wanted to show
But
like the whole
It's
thing
hard
in
to
one.
see the figures on this
But
piece of paper.
the nice thing about this is like, we can see the end in sight, 2027.
Well, like, I think since we were on board, we didn't have like a master schedule showing
Yes.
all your future projects, so at least now we have a defined master schedule.
Nice.
And budget-wise, nothing is changed. This is what was presented to you in the last study session. We just basically showing all in one package. So different projects, the same amount of budget is broken down between soft costs and hard costs. And again, this is the same amount of deficit. Still, we are close to $15 million short if we want to finish all of this.
Now, the only thing with that is with the $50 million shortage, in 2025, we're eligible for more modernization eligibility dollars. We're looking at, the last time I looked at the figures, we're looking at something between $15 to $20 million at the high school. So it's enough funds. The thing that will have to happen is close monitoring of our cash, because at some point we will need to borrow money through a COPS or something of that, or similar to that, to get us through when we get the money for modernization eligibility. So that's
Cash
the
flow
piece that
issue.
because we need the cash. We'll get the money. So like I said, we'll apply like in 2025 as soon as we're eligible to apply. We won't get it till like probably 2028. It takes about 3 years. So we'll need to establish a COPS payment that gets us to that. And then what will happen is as soon as we get that payment, we pay off the COPS payment. So that's the way that'll kind of work out. So we're hopeful that one of the things that's going to help us and why we rearrange some things as well, as we had discussed with the board, our financial analyst now is actually moving next week to with the facilities team, because that financial analyst is going to be like really tracking cash flow, budget, making sure that because we're getting very close to the end here, so, that's why we're doing that.
Thank you.
And now that we have the master schedule, Elliot did a good job, so we have a cash flow developed that we are working with the California Financial. It's gonna be presented to you that shows exactly when we need all this money. So based on the progress of the construction, we projected when we need the money. So Raphael and the team know exactly when that shortage are gonna start based on the money that we have available from the fund.
Okay, thank you. And then there's no question that we can secure a COP?
No, there's not gonna be a problem.
Okay.
Well, I just want to thank you because it's really been a challenge and we've thrown a lot of things at you, including today. But I think that the fact that you solved this for us, that we're able to finish the schools, and 2027 seems a long way off, but we actually have a feasible plan in place that can happen, and I think that everybody in the community will thank you for this. And I know I thank you, and thank you for saving us so much money and figuring out a way for us to finish the schools.
Agreed, absolutely agree, and maybe sooner.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. And then we have-
Elliot
we're not
promised.
done yet, so maybe we have some other portions, so if we could keep going here. Any questions?
Yeah, we did.
No, we
Quick
did that.
We did that
question,
pretty well.
pickleball is gone, it's off the table?
Well, we talked about making it part of the tennis courts with like
Got you.
putting up the temporary setups. And we can do that on those two along Moreno as well in the meantime.
Okay,
Let's
thank
go to
you.
the next.
So, any more questions for the high school? Good? All right. So, what I want to talk about today is Horace Mann shade structures, because we've had a new development, as you heard from Melissa earlier. Originally, we talked about putting up this single pole shade structure in 2 spots on that patio. Once we brought on an architect to help us with the design, they were not able to, but they found out that Horace Mann, of all of our schools, is the only school that sits in this liquefaction zone, which does not allow us to put up single pole shade structures because of the soil beneath.
Meaning it's kind of loose?
Yeah. So we can't put up single or double pole cantilever type shade structures on this campus at all. So that was a new development that I didn't know about before. So with that being said, and not being able to do these 2 single pole structures, our architect put together a few different options for alternate shades, which will cover more or less of the area on the patio, depending on what we decide.
How are they supported?
By poles, but there'll be 4 poles instead of 1 or 2.
You couldn't use one pole is what the.
Yeah.
Will, am I correct, is my math correct? Because for option 2, it's the 30 by 90 high par sale, so we're only getting 2,700 square feet of coverage. But then option 4, which is less expensive, is 40 by 80, so we're getting 3,200 square feet of coverage.
Yeah, it's more coverage,
Okay.
yeah. The sales don't provide as much coverage because of these
So
little breaks in between.
I have 2 questions, oh, sorry. Yeah, of course. So I have 2 questions for you. My first is there any good reason to not do option 4? Are there any negatives?
It's all about budget, so
Okay.
that's the only negative part.
Got you. And then,
And the kind of like the intrusiveness now of the 4 poles.
yeah.
Or 6 poles.
Look through it, where are those poles?
The poles are on each corner and then 2 in the middle.
But one thing I find interesting is that in those indentations is where the lunch tables go. So even after spending all this money and making all this effort, where the lunch tables are situated will not be covered by these, is that correct?
Are you referring to right here?
Yes.
That's correct, and they can always move those lunch tables into that area.
That's
And I
true,
think that's what
during
Melissa,
lunch.
and that's what Melissa was referring to.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I mean, I would be interested to know if anybody feels that any idea other than 4 is the one.
I just wanna ask,
Sure.
what was the original budget on this? Illustration?
I believe we showed 65 plus soft costs, we were around 85,000.
Okay, and is the 135 to 145 including soft costs?
Yes, except for the 10 grand or so from the architect, so another 10 grand.
And where were we getting the money for this from?
We were using maintenance funds for this, I believe.
We were gonna use some maintenance funds, but we do have some modernization funds that we can apply for now.
And also,
it was about like $200,000 that we could apply for now that were But those funds won't come in until about 3 years from now.
And the PTA is out, right? They're not funding.
No, they're out. But also I want to mention developer fees as well. Rafael and I are looking into that.
Okay.
That might be a possibility, and we do have some excess developer fees that we can use.
Well, I would be a hypocrite if I didn't say number 4, because I'd like to do it right from the start.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And those breaches in the other one could be problematic, I mean.
Yeah, this option 2 and even 1 aren't really great options.
Thank
You just
you.
wanted to provide those.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
guys.
you very much.
What's the material on option 4 again? I'm sorry. Is that-
It will be a fabric type structure.
It is a
yeah,
fabric structure.
Yeah.
Obviously waterproof.
Yeah.
What is the maintenance on that structure?
There isn't much maintenance. They have like a 10-year lifespan. After 10 years,
You can replace the
we
fabric.
could replace the fabric if
but
we
the
had
big-
to.
The big expense is in the poles.
Yes. So those are, like I said before, they could last a lifetime.
Okay.
How do they get like debris and things and bird poop and things on it? I mean, is there a
Because original.
schedule
well,
of taking it off and cleaning it or?
No, you would have to just power wash it or something.
Yeah.
Ken's guys have been doing a good job on our other shades to keep
But
those
it's
clean.
probably domed, right? It's
Yeah.
not like flat, so it's not like it's gonna.
Well,
fall.
these are domed, these are not, these are
That's
flat.
what I mean, yeah, that looks like a disaster,
Yeah.
but the other one would sort of deal with the water or something.
If they are under tension, basically,
Ah,
it's not
yeah.
gonna puddle.
Yeah, it wouldn't
This
puddle.
does not stretch over the whole playground area.
No, because we can't attach to the walls of the building is one reason why we can't do that. And also we have to be at least
You
5
have
to.
to
So
stay
they're sort of
20
like
feet away from.
freestanding,
Yeah.
I mean, they're not freestanding,
Yeah,
but
the
they're,
poles are the corners.
yeah, okay.
Does, have you guys spoken to the Horseman staff?
We have, and
Because I know the PTA chimed in
Yeah.
very well, but it's really, I wonder if the admin or teachers, and I got an email from a teacher today, I don't know if she sent it to the whole board, but I'm supportive for, I
Yeah.
don't know what the general consensus is, or.
that was the latest I got as well.
Do they do,
Yeah.
they do, TK and kinder pickup from that spot too, right?
I
Is my-
believe so. I'm
Yeah,
not, I'm
that's
not
true.
positive.
So-
Yeah, I think, I guess for us, our recommendation would be,
Off
4 as
Camel?
well.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, so this would help them during lunchtime, snack
Mhm.
time, and also pick up and drop off, rain time,
It's a great
yeah.
Right.
kind of hangout
Yeah.
place.
It
And
seems
it
like that
it's the
makes a
most
good
covered.
argument for development funds.
Well,
Yeah,
it's-
we'll
the
try.
developer funds is gonna be hard. I think it's more probable that if we apply modernization dollars, but I could look into developer, I just, I don't want to mislead.
Yeah, we,
And, I don't think it's as probable.
Yeah,
It'd be
okay.
great if we could.
I'm in favor of number 4, assuming that you're using maintenance funds, and if you can pull in developer funds to offset, that would be great too.
And modernization funds.
Yes,
Yeah.
sir, you got it.
so
And
we're,
is
As
there
little
any
of,
other-
yeah, I would just say as little of deferred maintenance funds as possible. That's, I'd like to try to leave, because we heard
Yeah,
Ken's
we know
update
you
today,
got-
and we know what's coming down the pike,
Yeah,
so,
We wanna keep
we wanna
Ken.
keep it, we wanna keep
Agreed.
the cash flow.
You don't want
Okay?
Ken to.
Agreed.
You guys all
you don't want to
good
make
with
Ken
four?
mad.
Yeah.
this is
We
a
do
really
not.
good
So
feature.
we're good with 4.
We're
I
going
vote
with
for
4.
4.
For the actual facility.
Do we need an actual vote?
That's what they.
No, it's
No,
direction.
direction.
So we just need direction.
All right.
You might wanna get that.
So do we have more direction then for 4?
Yeah.
Okay.
I had are we
Thank you.
basically done?
That's all I had.
So let me ask a couple of questions I had just of the projects in general. Are we out of the ground yet in Peters with the footings?
What was your question, Noah?
Almost. Are we out of the ground with the footings in Peters? The
Oh,
actual
oh,
foundation work? Almost.
Anticipating the end of the month.
Fabulous, thank you.
Yeah, that's gonna be a big step.
Has the water table issues in the area caused us any problems or expected to cause us any problems?
No.
Okay, I know like they're causing metro problems, so that's why I'm asking. So, huge problems, but that's not affecting us. Okay, wonderful. Those are my questions. El Rodeo Auditorium. I wanted to ask about that.
What was your question?
So I think you're asking if we can
I've
use
asked
it.
before, are we still looking at completion at the end of the year of that auditorium?
Yes.
When do you think the earliest it could be utilized?
Last that I checked, I have not, they didn't have a date for the furniture yet, for the seats. I'm gonna follow up again, but definitely at the end of the year for sure can be utilized.
Do you mean the
Really?
school year?
No.
No.
But don't you need like
Something?
occupancy?
Yeah, we'd have to-
I'd like our high
Yeah.
school performing arts department to have access to that for all their shows, because it's a pretty equivalent seating to where they're booking anyway.
And it's expensive
And
and
it's
far.
hours.
Well, and it's
Belongs
far
to
nicer.
us. What?
It's gonna be far nicer.
discount.
Yes, so we're trying, what I'm
Let
trying
me
to do.
just reconfirm the date for the furniture
I
delivery.
don't wanna jump into anything yet, but eventually, they're gonna bring contracts to us when they secure spring
Like-
places.
Like we already have them, but
So
they're
I
not
kinda
cheap.
wanna see if we
Yeah.
can.
We would just have to
Because
so-
it would be
so
a
we'll-
great, it would be great for our kids to be able to open that with performances.
And so we'll look into the furniture, the delivery, and then we also have to coordinate like the opening of it as well. We wanna make sure we just don't start like a formal opening.
Well, we're working on that through the transition
Right.
team.
Yeah,
But I
I
wanna make sure
understand.
because
I
this is
understand.
timely because we're bringing to you
Okay.
some of those spring performances, and I know that I've done this before, where trying to get that letter of occupancy at the
That's
same
what we
time
would need,
is a
yeah,
problem.
and sign up on that section.
Yes.
Right,
That's-
so we'll see, but thank you for being diligent on that, I think it will be great, it would be great for everything as far as our community and the program and the whole,
I think the community is dying to see us open.
Something.
It would be great if we
They're
could.
tired.
yes, they want the next big thing, thank you very,
You're welcome.
very much.
Can you do me a favor, and I'm sorry,
Repeat everything from Michael.
We'll start back from the
No,
beginning.
not
We're not
that.
going back to the beginning.
No, I, Will does a great job of keeping our whole team updated, so, sorry, because I had to speak to the chief of police.
I meant the beginning.
I just would like to get from you, because I know that the next step is gonna be, if we are looking at bringing in like the dance company, like, can I get the, because I know it's gonna go there, the measurements of the stage, and because it.
I provided Dana with all that recently, just within the
Oh, you
past
did, okay,
2
good,
weeks,
because
but I can
we
provide it
just
to
talked
you
to her,
also.
so,
Yeah.
good, as long, thank you.
Get it to Samantha.
Yes.
So
Right.
is there a question about access to the auditorium and the exterior not being ready by the,
Which
No, it's just
of
before,
El Rodeo?
Well, the site work may still, because of all the changes that we made
Yeah.
in the soccer field and so on, it may drag a little bit, they are working. But if we wanna occupy a building temporarily, we can provide like a temporary pass.
A
I
day,
mean,
a
you're
day's
talking
work?
about December 2023.
No, I'm talking about spring 24.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I know,
that's what I'm
for the
talking
spring performance.
Spring dance,
Yeah.
spring musical, the theater, and then the orchestra and stuff.
Yep.
Okay.
Like all towards like spring, that's why if they get it done in end of December, January, we should be fine.
Before we open El Rodeo. you want
Yes,
to-
prior to opening, I
We
want
could
the
go there
opening.
before the school
We've
opens.
told everyone
actually.
we're
And
opening
while this is
fall
important,
2023.
Right, for the
it's that
kids.
they're
So you
holding
wanna
these
open it
dates for
early.
us, so we don't
Just
wanna
the
put
theater.
ourselves in a
Not the
situation
Not the
where,
school, just the theater.
you know what I mean, like so I know it's just a priority,
Yeah,
it's
so I
like,
mean-
they're holding
So I
dates
think
for us,
that's
like at the
really
Wallace,
clear.
and so I just wanna,
So-
it is timely.
Right,
I mean, we'll confirm the
But-
delivery of the seats and then
Okay.
that's pretty much.
Rodeo
Yeah.
Auditorium.
Okay.
Yeah.
okay, wonderful.
Thank you.
And
Thanks.
we are
How
all
many
gonna go
seats fit
touring
in that
next week.
El Rodeo Auditorium?
We're touring El Rodeo next week.
Next Tuesday, right?
670 or
It's on a
so, I
Tuesday,
think, off
Mandy,
the top of my head.
Thank you.
Tuesday's our day.
6 to 7.
Six
on
to
Monday.
seven.
Yeah, 670.
Thank you.
Tuesday's our
I'm
day.
gonna thank you guys again.
Yeah, thank you for day in, day out.
You're a blessing to
Yeah.
us, and
Thank you.
it's
You guys
really
are
been
so
a
quiet
miracle.
about
You guys turned this
Well,
whole
Sean and
program
Alicia,
around.
you
Thank
know,
you.
if
You
they
know,
wanted,
people
they're
have
itching to say
short-term
something.
memories, but
Go
when
forth
we
and
came
build.
in, it was a disaster here.
Just
And
1 year
you
ago.
really smoothed things over, and you really,
It seems like only a
we've come
year
so
ago that
far
we
in
changed
a
over.
year, so.
It was just a
Unbelievable.
year. Look what
Once a
they've
year.
done in a year.
Yeah, I know, I'm thinking that.
Yeah.
I mean,
Where
every
we've
group
gone
from
in
the
a year.
CBOC
Or where we
to
come
finance
from,
committee,
or where we
everybody talks
going.
about how transparent this program is. Any questions that come up in the CBOC,
All right.
they're answering every question.
Are we going into another
And-
session?
We're going into closed. How are you, are you
Completely
okay, or?
different program.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Well,
everybody.
Thank you guys.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, crew.